Hey, Liz. And then I'm going to share my screen now. And I think these are the minutes from the last meeting.
Right.
Carolyn, this is Sasha. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I was just wondering if you could do me a favor, and because I can't see very well in the room, if you could just, ask people to say their name.
Oh, you just want everyone to introduce themselves real quick?
Yeah, just their names would be great. I recognize, a few people, but there are a couple I don't recognize, and I can't see very well, because it's a small picture.
Right, well, you probably can't see, Lisa and I are on one side, you probably can't see us, so our hands are right here. We'll start with Isabel.
Yes.
Bonjour Sacha, si ça fait. Sacha?
I lost the picture. That's okay, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just go right ahead.
Russell? Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Russell is introducing himself, can you hear him, Sasha?
Sasha, can you hear me?
I can hear, I can hear you.
Here, okay. Isabel here, Russell is here, Helen is here, Carrie is here, Richard is here. Is that helpful?
And our guest.
And our guest Melissa's on the end, because you can't see her either. You can't see her, she's out of frame. Okay, now that we've gotten introductions out of the way, those minutes look accurate to me. Does anyone have any notes? Motion to approve the minutes?
I'm with the group.
Great.
Who seconded it?
Carol?
I second it.
Great. So, we wanted to let anyone know who wasn't at the work session, that I think it was, fairly well received. I think they had a lot of questions. I don't personally believe that council gave feedback that's actionable. The pool came up a couple times, and we know that 2 council members are in favor of a pool, so they wanted a little bit more discussion, and I know we've given that a fair amount of time in this committee. I think we've given it a fair shake, compared to how the survey results stacked up. I think we've given it a lot of time and discussion, but obviously there's gonna be outspoken community members who really wanna see it. So what we ended up doing is in the budget, I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to review it, but we did look at some of those numbers and are including it just as bird's eye kind of view of what that might look like. Very ballpark, based on a local pool nearby. If anyone was at the council meeting, the work session, Helen, you were there, what would you say the reception was? I don't want to bias it with one.
No, I think it was mixed. I think Rob was on some kind of a thing, I don't know what he was doing, but he seemed to think that he hadn't gotten enough for his money, but that's exactly what we paid for, and that's what they gave us. I wasn't sure about that. And Wanda, one of the ones who I think is probably advocating for a pool, she talked about having another survey, and I spoke out and said, we've had the survey, you don't go back in and get to change your mind, or try to get other support for it. The survey was done, and that's what it came out, and anyway, so there's going to be pushback, I think, from the council on some areas. I don't know when it's going to get approved, but Alfonso is not going to be with it. And so we've got a couple other folks that are running for council, and we have no idea where they are. So I don't think this is a done deal by any means. I think we may want to keep the committee together, I hope, a little bit longer to resolve some of these issues, since we're more involved with it than other folks. In fact, I was going to suggest that this has nothing to do with the presentation at the workshop, but I was looking at some of the maps and looking at some of the costs and things that they're suggesting that we do, and I would love for maybe not everybody in the committee, but people who are more interested in a particular area to maybe get together and look at all the costs and what they are suggesting that we do. And I'll just give you a quick example. My interest is the South Hills, because I'm just crossing, it's my neighborhood. And they were it's supposed to be a conservation area. It's supposed to be, was originally for wildlife, and we were supposed to have minimal impact in there. Well, they've got 6 benches and walk around and hang out, and none of the other areas have 6 benches in them. And they've got things in these educational, I don't know whether it be kiosks or whatnot. It does kind of take away from what that area is supposed to be. And so if we're going to have kiosks and things, and I would like to have some more input into that when they start deciding on the final designs of kiosks. In our report that we got, they showed an example of a big gigantic kiosk that was just huge. And then they had another example somewhere else of a smaller kiosk. We gave all the information. And so I just want to have input on what they're going to be putting on the trails. That's a long way to say that, sorry.
And I think we're a long way from that too. So the council will be meeting again and having another work session on Parks and Open Space next week, for the council meeting next week. So hopefully you guys can maybe come and attend that part of the council meeting. I think they're starting at 4:30 again.
Well, but they've given us all these estimated costs.
They do.
If you take out 5 of the benches in the South Hills, or 4 of them, you can knock off an awful lot of the cost right away.
Well, I mean, and we say benches, but it could just be a very naturalistic, we talked about that in the last meeting, that it would just be like a carved stump of, and we know what those trails are like, they're very narrow, a lot of them. There isn't really be room for like a big bench and a shade structure or anything along those trails. It's already quite shady.
And so, I'd say this is a estimate of possible cost.
Yes.
It is not saying that we're going to be putting out 6 benches next week on anything.
I understand that, but other folks are going to read it and they're going to see it and say, I don't want to spend $18,000 on benches in the South Hills.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a good
so
thing.
we can get part of those things out of the way right now and make the cost more realistic of what the residents do want, or invite anyone to be a part of it. But just keep the committee going, or some facet of the committee going a little longer to look at things more carefully.
So I would say this, I don't think because this committee was supposed to just do this plan. And so, and then I think after a certain point, then it falls back to the standing committees for other things.
Planning and environmental probably.
And maybe with benches, if we're gonna have a uniform, so the city's already kind of chosen the sign design, basically. So we know what our signs will look like, basically, already. So and the city can also choose a bench design, and you could have one bench in one area and one bench. So I think that's kind of moving along in other areas. I don't think, this committee necessarily has to stay to manage each part of it and stuff. So
I'm suggesting that the residents be included in the other parts of the planning that doesn't come from.
So, part of, because this is crossing over into more of the next conversation, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to the.
Yeah, that's so the city council, like I said, the pool came up, expenses came up, Rudy had mentioned she would rather have a pavilion in, Upper Cougar Creek than in necessarily the uplands. Various council members kind of had their own ideas. I would just say we relied heavily on the survey, but I did make a comment that we tried to incorporate some of the ideas that Planning and Environmental has been working on for a few years, which is the trail around Upper Cougar Creek and some of the more CED type, ideas, which would be to attract people to Upper Cougar Creek. It's not like the survey said, a lot of people want to go hang out in Upper Cougar Creek. I just know that based on our committee work and the different, people that have been working on long-term projects, that these are kind of already being they're in the pipeline and they're in some cases already have funding. So I would say that it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's an amalgam of what committees have been working on, what the survey results were, what our committee has decided on, and I feel like you can't please everyone, and we did the best that we could. Based on the information that we had. And I don't think that council gave us a lot of actionable items to go back and change with regards to our pitch. And our budget here, they've asked for the budget, so maybe they'll have more feedback once they see numbers to kind of, react against. That's the only thing I could say.
Yeah, can I speak whenever we're speaking is finished?
Yeah, go ahead, Liz. It's fine.
Yeah. So, I guess just from talking to different people that I know and such, and it was hard for me to understand what the survey did actually tell us, but, when I see all these prices, I do think that this is all the prices, and maybe they're just like suggestions, and we're only gonna do half of it or something, but, it seems like the pricing seems like more than what the council would support to me, and I know the council's changing and all that, so I don't know, but that's one thing that I was thinking. I didn't understand on a lot of the things when I saw the different prices and such, like the pool, for instance, what is that, was that an Olympic size pool, was it a little neighborhood pool? What were we getting, not just the pool, but many of the items. And then I guess the next thing is that the upland proposal, it seems like that upland, I guess having a big structure there and all that, it seems like that has been shot down a few times already. And it doesn't seem like it's connected, to the rest of Sunset Valley, the way Upper Cougar Creek is. And, I think that there's already been a proposal for a pavilion at Upper Cougar Creek. And I know that all of our funding comes from tax dollars of the shopping, and, so it just seems like it'd be good to maybe keep things contiguous.
Well, we're just kind of right now, we're kind of reflecting on, Liz, what city council feedback was at the work session. So we're gonna move on to other topics, later in the meeting, it's fairly soon. So do you have any feedback that pertains to city council directive from the work session at all, or anything that relates to the work session? Because I think we're not gonna change the plan at this meeting, we're reviewing the numbers next. And we definitely,
I'm going for that. I'm going for that.
Yeah.
That's right.
okay, all right,
At least,
yeah, Richard has a comment.
so I listened into the council meeting, and I would say that there was a lot of pushback about the pool.
Yes,
And they want, I think we owe them some words saying, this is what we looked at, this is why we did not include the pool. And if you want to go forward, here's a number you can start with, or whatever. I think we had good reasons for not having the pool in there, but I think we need to make that clear to the council that we did look at it and why we didn't.
and one of the reasons I stated is, look, when we looked at the data, the item that we had listed for pool included fountains, splash pads, and pools. And even with those 3 items together, it's still only ranked tied with art in public places. And so, and that's like number 3 and 4. So we kind of prioritize the first category and the second category, and we try to give preference to those based on the survey data. Now, we did do a little bit of art in public places on this because we know that CEB is working on that and that other groups are also working on that as well. I know it's very difficult to say a high ticket item would just wipe out everything else. So that would be completely ignoring items 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? It's very difficult, like, to be like an all or nothing.
I just think we owe them some answer and in words rather than just a dollar amount saying, we looked at it, and if you guys, if somebody feels like, hey, we ought to have a pool, to me, that's almost as big as everything else we did.
Completely.
And someone needs to look at it, with that in mind. There are a lot of issues with the pool that are not issues with parking.
I agree with Richard.
It's a big
Yeah, I
deal.
agree.
I mean, the legality of it, who gets to swim in it, do you charge memberships, who provides the land, the liability, the water usage, it's way bigger than, it's as big as everything else we did. So I think we somehow say that to them and say, hey,
This is what was written in the council cover sheet, if you want to read that.
Can you make it bigger?
Carolyn, why don't you just read it out loud?
It says, throughout the survey and other community engagement opportunities, the idea of a community pool or some form of splash pad was raised. The use of a water feature of some form ranked 4th tied with art in public places is a question regarding park priorities. At this time, the ad hoc committee has not recommended moving forward with the pool. There were several reasons for this recommendation. First, some residents were wanting to create a private pool, but the city would not be able to make a private pool with public funds. Environmental concerns due to prolonged drought were also considered. The cost for initial construction as well as continual maintenance and staffing were also a concern. The committee did not include the pool in its recommendation. However, there is space at the uplands where a pool could be considered in the future if the opportunity to create a pool that addresses these concerns arises. The committee was not as opposed to a splash pad, although environmental as well as health and safety concerns kept it from being included at this time. And then we did have a talk about a small water feature similar to the sand area at Butler Park being included behind City Hall. So that was what we explained to City Council.
that's great.
So,
I didn't see that. That's exactly what I was hoping.
huh? This was in the cover sheet that was sent to City
With the
Council.
work session, that was, yeah.
And I will say, so this is the pool that they're referencing. The city of Austin just built this. So this is a swimming area, and there's a small little wading pool over on this side. So this was the pool that was just built for the Go Valley neighborhood in the city of Austin in that area. And that is what cost $2.8 million to build.
That was without the land.
Yeah, the city already owned the land.
Yeah, so assuming the city somehow was able to donate the land and then claim it's not a public pool.
Yeah, and so, yes, exactly.
Which is a tricky thing.
Which is kind of, yeah, tricky is one way to say it.
that assumes you'd be able to get a lifeguard, which is the city of Austin can't get for most of their pools.
Yeah, I think,
There's lots of issues.
Barbara Wilson, who, I think was the city manager of, and she residents in the Valley, and I think she was working for the city of Elgin at that time. And they the city of Elgin opened a community pool. They had to hire 30 lifeguards to cover people being out, people being sick, all the shifts and all of this stuff. And kids who only want to work 15 hours a week and
Summer vacation trips, yeah.
Well, some of these private pools that run by HOAs don't have lifeguards.
they don't have to have lifeguards in a private pool, but a
So
public pool does.
all those issues have to be figured out.
So it wasn't basically saying there's never gonna be a pool, but there's just way too many issues to be able to work out. And the city has land, if they can figure out some of those issues, something could happen in the future.
Well, I didn't see that document. I just sat in on the meeting, and that's great. I think
Yeah.
That explains what I was asking.
Yeah, okay. So,
Well, yeah, it does. Does anyone else have any other comments as it relates to our presentation to city council?
and I would say this, so one of the things that the city council did kind of want is for you guys to look at these costs. This is not necessarily saying, because what you see at the bottom of this list is going to say, this does not include design consultants and all of this. That cost is not included. This is just a rough cost estimate if we did X, Y, and Z at these locations, basically. And I think what city council wanted you guys to do is to look at, now we have some costs associated with what the plan is. The plan is not going to be ever done in 1 year. It's not like we're gonna start doing this, and we just down the list. So I think they wanted you guys to look at this, kind of say, okay, yeah, these things are good, this makes kind of sense, and kind of then prioritize and maybe make some phasing kind of recommendations from that. So,
Right, and I think one of the steps that, did you mention, we would need to send out an RFP, we would get bids back, we would have to see which firms are the best at bidding for certain jobs. It would be a whole process after this, it wouldn't just be,
And
we're
so-
gonna green light this and that's it.
So for example, if, there are 3 major nodes in here, we've got Upper Cougar Creek, the Uplands, and City Hall. So for example, if the committee made a recommendation to say, you know what, let's take those projects to the next phase and get some preliminary design work and landscape architecture on. So that, because these are just conceptual kind of at this point. And kind of move those along to the next phase, and then at that point, then you can say, okay, now we're gonna do X, we're gonna do this here, we're gonna do the trails at both locations this next year, and then we're gonna do this the next year, kind of thing. So however you guys wanna do that, but these are the rough numbers, and these are just based on some of their experience with, cost of the trails and stuff like that.
So just so I understand, so the goal right now is, so we got that whole spreadsheet, all the costs and different things, and so some of these things said that like we're gonna try to do all those things, our goal right now is just to rank, like which ones, with, now that we have some costs next to them, which ones we wanna propose to do to the city council, is that what we're doing right now?
Well, I mean, city council has a budget that they're working with, which I believe is around $700,000. So, and that includes art in public places and some of the work that Kim Allison Company is doing right now for the rebranding of the city. And so basically what we're looking at is like a phasing in approach. So these are our priorities. These are also working with the Canalison Company rebranding. This is also working with the Art in Public Places. This is also working with what CED has planned for re-beautification, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that we're ranking how we want to phase these projects in, or how we feel these numbers are looking based on, a lot of agreement amongst groups and people and, all that.
I'm gonna throw this out to the committee as well. Part of what Yasker Robinson is also going to be providing us is saying, here are financial resources, grants, partnerships, things of that nature that the city can go for. So for many of these items, for getting grants and stuff like that, we're gonna have really good actionable plans in place So moving something to that phase where we have an actionable plan and then we can apply for a grant and get, state and federal money to pay for whatever it is we're wanting to build, then we need to move something forward to that stage probably in order to get those grant funds.
Okay, that's my next question, thank you.
Helen?
Well, my question is, were we charged to do anything beyond what we're doing now? I mean, you're saying the committee, but I thought we were kind of done. We've done this part, and isn't this committee almost over?
Yeah, this committee probably, unless council changes something, this committee is, once the park and open space plan is kind of more completely in council's realm, and they're not asking for anything else, then this committee would be kind of dissolved and everybody would, many of you serve on other committees already. Or you can still turn in a committee application and be on another committee right now.
So what you were saying about doing further work as a committee, which is what I heard you say, you're talking about that it would then just kind of go to P&E or budget or.
So think about this. So there are a ton of restoration and repairing projects and things like that. Those all probably need to be incorporated, and we need to redo the open space management plan, which is something totally separate from this. This is something totally separate. So that would probably be incorporated into something that P&E already does and has already done in the past. They've already done the plan in the past. So updating that, incorporating those pieces into how we're going forward and how we're going to phase different projects in the open spaces that are more restorative in nature and things of that nature. Maybe then they would move those projects forward.
Richard had a question about that, actually, Carolyn. He was wondering what the $250K for water quality protection, water quality features meant in the
It
budget.
doesn't say protection, it says water quality feature.
That's a water quality pond.
It's
Anywhere we're putting in a parking space, we're gonna have to have a water quality pond. So if we put in parking at 6107 Brody, we're gonna have to have a water quality pond with it.
Which is a rainwater diversion.
It will somehow collect rainwater and filter. I don't know what the design of that pond would be, but it would have to have some sort of rainwater catchment type. It would be catching the runoff from the parking and
So
doing it
like
treatment.
this thing we got next to the police department, something like that, possibly. Or like.
Hopefully not like that.
I wasn't trying to be mean.
Probably something that's like on Yellowtail Cove would be a better option. Something
Which
that,
doesn't look like 250,000 to me, but.
they have irrigation systems attached to it, so that's what you don't see.
So there's
Yeah, so
an
it pulls in the water, it filters it through layers, and then it juts it out through pumps with sprinklers. In an ideal world, if this pump isn't broken, the sprinklers will spread so it also serves to give water to the trees, maybe in an off day that it didn't rain or
I just
something.
didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it, any of our discussions are on their maps.
Yeah, and well, I think we put water quality something on there, and it should be on there now. Because we did, when we were looking at it, well, we put a parking in, these are the things that come with it. But there are things we will probably be looking at that would be a little bit more, we could see if we could get some more natural kind of function versus what we,
Anywhere we've added a bunch of impervious cover, we're gonna have to.
anywhere you're gonna have a bunch of impervious cover, you're gonna have that. And
Okay,
so I think
all makes sense.
that would also lead to, I think it's on the uplands. Because we are gonna be adding a lot of more, and that's the thing about the uplands. The uplands has impervious cover that can be down and used versus Upper Cougar Creek, which only has pretty much that little triangle behind Madeline that is the only place you can really build something.
Right,
Like,
I wanted to address that really quick. Hey Liz, I understand that you had a concern about the shade structure or pavilion up at Upper Cougar Creek. I wanted to let you know that in our plans, we have the adventure park in Upper Cougar Creek, and we do have proposed shade structures from Canales and Company that like designs for that already, and we do have shade structures, it's just not a quote-unquote pavilion. When we talk about pavilion, we're probably thinking about that's where the farmer's market would be, and there just isn't the parking in the Upper Cougar Creek area to support the farmer's market, and that's why we didn't recommend the pavilion being built behind Well Madeline. That's why we recommended the uplands, and it actually does reflect the data in your survey that people were asking for the farmer's market pavilion shade structure. So I just wanted to address that because I know you brought that up in your comments earlier about shade and pavilion structure in Upper Cougar Creek.
And I will say this, in the final draft of the Upper Cougar Creek plan, the pavilion was removed. There was no
Pavilion is removed
They-
officially.
even the final draft document had pulled the pavilion off of Upper Cougar Creek.
And that's based on other committees' work, that's not even our work.
So,
So, yeah, so thank you for that. So, you know, this is the right time to talk about this, but the pavilion that's or that's being proposed for the upland, is that, so that's like for to have music and also, so is it mostly for the farmer's market, or is it for, I guess I heard that the farmer's market was kind of, I don't know, not necessarily, I guess I don't really know our relationship with them, but what is the pavilion for, like a lot of different things we're hoping that.
Yeah, so it's just twofold. One is it's a gathering place for the community. It's a place to host events. It also can support the elementary school. We're making it on the more protected side of the uplands for a couple reasons. One was to make it more of a congruous whole section for people to be hanging out in, because we do have access to the playgrounds and the track and everything that is at the elementary school currently. And if we had that all as like one like hangout area, like it would be really great for families. You could do picnics under the pavilion and have your kids playing in the playground at the elementary school. This is like an area that we think is prime for this because it's already got a lot of trees, it's already quite park-like. Carolyn, did you want to add anything to the pavilion? I know P&E has been asking for a pavilion for the farmer's market for a long time. And we kind of looked at a lot of other farmers markets and in the area, and we just think that this would make ours like a real destination and bring people to Sunset Valley.
and there was a lot of discussion at a meeting, I don't know if you were at, Liz, about having these kind of anchor spots within the city. So the uplands would be one side, you have something at City Hall, and then Upper Cougar Creek, and then also there was a proposal for 6401 Brody having some more community garden, and that would kind of tie the uplands to that as well. So, you know, where they could have farmers, people growing stuff that are being sold at the farmer's market. So there was that discussion that was happening regarding that as well.
Right,
Okay, so it looks like the location of the pavilion, I guess, because what you're saying, Lisa, is it's like gonna be closer to the amenities of the elementary school and all that, but it's not gonna be viewable really from, you know, the traffic area, so it didn't look like it's gonna be in a.
well, we are actually recommending large signage where the Tony Burger sign is currently for people to turn here for the farmer's market. And we are also recommending a large archway that kind of announces that area more formally on a, you know, on this, how would you describe that? It's like,
The triangle property.
right, okay, so the triangle property is where we would have signage of like, turn here for the farmer's market, and we would also have an archway that is across from the parking lot that attracts people, draws people into that area. So it will be visible in the sense that there is gonna be a couple landmark, large, you know, branded Sunset Valley ways to draw people in.
Okay, that's good, because I was thinking if we had that, it'd be good to have, you know, where, you know, people could see it.
Right, and then we were also talking about like, I mean, the load in and load out situation is just much more convenient along that road back there where the vendors can load their trailers back them in and unload them there versus on, Horgan Trail, which is a little bit more narrow and, doesn't really lend itself to backing in as well as like the triangle, for instance, like that's been a nice convenient area to back into. And that's one of the things that I've heard directly from the vendors at the farmer's market is that they appreciate the load in, load out ability at that location. So we're looking to do that again with this. So as far as like ranking the priorities, I think one of the things that P&E has been working on a long time is the trails in Upper Cougar Creek. Do you think it's fair to say that CED, P&E, and our committee would all really recommend the trails in Upper Cougar Creek? Or is that one of the things we want to prioritize as a group?
Are we gonna look at all the rest of this?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, if you guys wanna go through maybe we
Yeah,
go down
section by section.
and then I can make some notes if there's questions.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So,
Do you want to do like a ranking of priorities? I don't know how I haven't really put much thought into this.
how about this? So what if you guys did like 3 different categories? Say, parks and open space management, restoration goes into one category. Like we'll make a plan for that through P&E or somebody who can kind of say, okay, these are how we're going to kind of
P&E and what
put these into the project list and how we're going to, manage those projects. Then you can have, okay, what if we move forward with planning for these areas? Then you can have these are things we could probably do now, like maybe directional signage, wayfinding signage, something of that nature. I don't know what it is. Maybe you can say, no, we need to go ahead and get those benches at, wherever it is you want to bench. I want more benches at the Westgate entry or something like that. And so maybe I don't know.
Do you want me to use the board?
We can do that, put it in
Okay. So let's do the different sections and I'll write them out.
So Carolyn, were you saying maybe you would do, maybe all the forest restoration on all the projects would be one way you could do it, as opposed to doing it project by project?
No, I'm saying that becomes like, we say, okay, we're gonna move this into the restoration category, and then you can prioritize them as individual projects within that category. And we can say, this committee says the most important one is, I don't know, Gaines rebuild, social Olympics, whatever you guys say is the most important.
I'm doing it based on which group would be in charge of which projects.
So,
Like Public Works, P&E. Public Works would be like the parking lot that we're recommending on.
yeah, but before you get to that has to be, you have to plan those things.
Yeah.
So you may say, to me, like if you say, we want to move forward and do a really good plan for these areas, and that way we can then have a little bit more detail, because we're going to need more detail.
Yeah.
We're finding
So why don't we do a category that says need RFP, like request for proposal from outside vendors, and then need further planning for other ones.
Okay, I'm still a little confused. It seems like if we're gonna prioritize, we ought to be saying, picking one of these areas and say, well, let's start with, here's the first one, the Gaines rebuild. And do we want to focus on the Gaines rebuild and like get it done instead of having these little piecemeal projects all over the city? Couldn't we say, Gaines rebuild is only $79,000. We could probably get that done or get that out of the way. We could look at maybe doing phased on the uplands and saying what we might want to do in the uplands, but leave all the rest of it for later, South Hills. Instead of, it seems like we do it this way, we're just gonna be piecemealing into.
Well, there's two tiers, right? There's our ranking of what we want to prioritize, and then there's what projects we're delegating out to the different groups, right? So there's two layers to it.
But are we the ones delegating, or is that council does that?
We're recommending this is a natural fit to pass off to P&E. We think that they would be great at deciding where all the park benches go. Or we think that the Upper Cougar Creek area, playground and trail should be handled by CED because it's to support the shopping area. Or like similar to like that, and I'm just throwing that out there, I'm not making those recommendations.
So I get that, but it seems like going back and picking, maybe ranking these areas, and I hate to pick.
So
one
let's
over
do the
another
areas
and
then.
say, this is the one we want, and this is the,
Okay,
City Hall is the most important to us, or Upland is the most important.
okay, so let's do the areas, Carolyn. We should just refer to the map then on their,
And just start with the Gaines Greenbelt.
Can we look at the budget before we decide which one to be like?
Yeah, we can look at the budget.
Do we want to even think about the budget, because this is just
Well, I think budget is important too.
well, agreed, I mean, this isn't any particular order, this is just saying.
It's an easy one to do, and get out of the way.
okay, so Uplands, Upper Cougar Creek, and City Hall.
Gaines.
These are the three nodes, you guys. This is what our group, because on the survey, people had ranked, they want nodes of activity. And so we did our recommendations based on the survey, which was people requesting nodes.
So you're suggesting we do notes first and then do the
Then
rest?
move on to all the other spaces.
This wasn't written in stone, this is what y'all decided.
This was based on the survey results that we
How
decided
are we gonna
nodes.
approach it with notes and not with all the.
We can do it holistically if you want. So you wanna do,
It seems like if we just do them all, pack a few easy, and then refine it later.
Gaines Greenbelt,
There's the two properties on Brody, there's Lone Oak, there's.
okay,
Some of those
so,
are cheap.
South Hills,
okay, so needs RFP. We know that the property on Brody needs RFP. We need to recommend a plan of action for that. We want nonprofits to come to city council and talk about their vision and pitch city council what their vision would be for that property.
Assuming that's one of the ones that we think ought to be addressed early on. Maybe it's something you let slide for, I don't know if you can for 2 or 3 years, but.
What if we took this as, what if we went through and did the green spaces and conservation areas first? Because those are gonna be mostly restoration projects and wayfinding signage.
and we're just picking.
And then you
which
could say,
committees are gonna deal with it.
you
That's
could
all.
say, these are the.
That's what I thought
Yeah.
we should do.
So, but we separate the parks and do them afterward, but maybe go through, because that takes up that's a big part of the list, is those green spaces and conservation areas.
But not a big part of the budget.
But not a big part of the
As a big
budget.
part of it.
And you could say, you know what, so we're gonna look at the green spaces and conservation areas, and we're gonna rank them on where we think they should kind of fall. And out of this, maybe we're gonna say, you know, we want the restoration done, or maybe you say we want 1 or 2 restoration projects a year, kind of going down that list. And then we also wanna go ahead and do, I mean, most of them are gonna have wayfinding signage as that. So where would you rank those? Would you say wayfinding signage and then restoration? And then, or vice versa?
I like that idea. And, you know, somebody just highlighted in Excel, which of those pieces we.
Okay, I can do that, I think.
we
Okay,
ought to fund.
so
here we go.
Gaines Greenbelt, let's start with that. We have Upper Woodlands restoration and reseeding. Do we also have Firewise budget in there?
No, not in Gaines.
We didn't have any Gaines.
Okay,
Are we not, a minute ago, y'all were talking about assigning these to different committees.
Yes.
The committees, so the things, okay, so you're doing
Gaines.
that, but then we're.
I
gonna
thought-
have a committee that would be in here between public safety and.
I thought public P&E should have, decide where they want to spend the budget on restoration and wildlife habitat and those kinds of things that planning and environmental normally deals with. They should look at all of our bids for the various projects and decide what they want to prioritize, because P&E has pitched to city council a budget. And we got approved $200,000, right? Or isn't it
Well, it's just parks and open space, it doesn't say what it
parks
is.
and open space?
So it could be for anything.
Yeah. But that's an additional to the 700K that's already, or no, that's not additional, that's carved out of the 700K. Okay,
And I think it's 800K.
Yeah, well, it would be this year.
okay. So,
Okay.
and this is based on the overage that the mayor had identified from the previous year budget surplus.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's pulled out of 800K.
Okay. It's a little bit above my pay grade here, I don't know the numbers.
This is some merit, just from this, it's just putting your, because I haven't looked at the other numbers, if you just kind of maybe put the top numbers of the projects in your areas too, just might be a little bit helpful to people.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So the Gaines Green Belt, how much do
Hold
we
on just a
have
second.
budgeted?
I'm saving it, just a second, I'm making a deal.
What did RFP say?
Request for proposals.
So Gaines is only 79. So let's see.
Is it called nature, it's called
Sunset
nature
Valley
preserve
Nature
or
Area.
Sunset Valley Nature Area, right? Area, not
Okay, so Gaines Greenbelt, 79,200.
79,200, and that's just for tree planting and seeding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Each tree planted, seed,
Okay.
all of them have contingencies. So.
What's the next green space?
Lower Cougar Creek,
Okay.
62,976.
And that was for,
Mostly riparian and woodland restoration, as well as wayfinding signage.
And the committee would be,
2,000,
Huh?
and the committee that would look at that would be P&E.
basically.
So they would definitely, so that's what I was saying, is that take back those restorations and then from each of the areas that they're in and put those into parks and open space management plan and kind of prioritize those projects in those areas. Because we self-identify areas, there's a whole lot to go into that. We can't just be like, oh, there's
That's
more
right.
work to be done. And then perhaps wayfinding signage. I mean, the city's already, like I said, the city's already kind of picked their signage.
That's right.
We already kind of know the signage like design that the city's gonna have. As far as,
What one, I'm sorry, just because you said it 3 times, which one?
I think the green one won.
The green one.
So,
It has like a carved
Yeah,
out
that's
sunset
so-
at the top.
so
Yeah.
that's what everybody says.
I'll take this home for a souvenir.
Yeah, so, and that's one of the reasons these things are super expensive, because the proposal was to build them out of steel. So we may be able to come up with a cheaper production, but right now that's the price because
What
the
about
proposal
the,
was steel.
okay, is there some way that the different committees can make recommendations of where those signs are going? Because you also don't want it having to look like a big mall with signs everywhere. This is supposed to be green spaces.
What was, can we just get back to the budget? Upper Cougar Creek, what was the budget for that?
Oh, you want those as well?
Yes.
Upper Cougar Creek, let me go past it, is 849,148.
849.
148. Not gonna put
148.
anything.
Okay,
Uplands was,
that's up here.
Uplands was 946,351.
946, and that includes pavilion and trails?
That includes all of it, yeah. And
Okay,
some restoration and all of it, yeah.
I'm just gonna say 946K, okay.
City Hall was 395, 322.
395.
Okay,
That's with the pickleball, the sound barrier,
everything,
the playground, the shade structure, the soccer nets.
yes.
I got a question on that.
might be a water feature there, and then I heard someone say there was gonna be a water feature there, but I don't see a water feature on there.
We talked about
Just
including
want to
it.
be clear.
Yeah,
It's a simple pump mechanism thing.
I think Roger may have mentioned it, something they have at Butler Shores. It's not like a splash pad, it's not something like that, but it's something that would be built into the nature play. It would be, because water may be part of that.
So it is something like that's included.
That would be,
That's in the
included in
adventure
this.
playground,
The nature play.
the nature play, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, just curious.
yeah, I don't think it's a super,
So City Hall is nature play,
yeah, and shade structure pickleball.
yep,
I think there was a question about this, we can keep this in there, I know one of the council members was kind of opposed to the idea, but I believe they thought we were building an actual soccer field.
no,
Yes.
there's, yeah.
Talked about lights.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not what this was, this is a couple,
Football field.
yeah.
Okay, so just like a quick takeaway. City Hall is nature play, shade structure, soccer and pickleball, like the Uplands is pavilion.
Trails, and there's actually gathering, there's just another shade structure in there.
Trails.
And water quality.
And water
It's
quality,
costing you $300,000 out of that budget.
Right.
but
Okay, continue.
we do have a fund that pays for that.
Yeah,
Separate
we do, we
from-
have
Right, separate from the general.
the green tax fund.
Okay.
So pavilion,
So yeah, I know it's a big
Pavilion,
number, but
trails,
there's money
water
that's
quality,
dedicated just for that.
parking. Okay, and then Upper Cougar Creek, what?
That has destination playground, I would think you could call it almost.
Yeah.
It has a really amazing playground that would be built, I mean, it would be, I don't know what it looks like yet, but it's supposed to be a destination playground.
Yeah,
And trails and gathering space, and with shaded gathering space.
And that was $849.
Yeah, because you've written it twice on there.
oh yeah, 849, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
It's down at the bottom, you wrote it down.
Upper Cougar Creek, 849. Yeah, that's one of our nodes, so that goes up here at the top. Okay, so destination playground, trails,
Shaded gathering areas.
shaded gathering. And that actually, the thing that Canales proposed was really cool on that. Shaded gathering areas.
Is that ADA also?
That one is
That's
ADA.
ADA trails. So like the crushed
I
granite ones
think-
here in front of City Hall.
Both, yeah, they're all decomposed granite, they're all, well, I mean, there may be something you have to do
On the very low.
at grade, or that would be concrete, but,
But it could be pervious paved.
yeah, no, there's options there.
Yeah.
But, yes, both the Uplands and Upper Cougar Creek have proposals for, especially Upper Cougar Creek with its connection between shopping centers, you're gonna need, and when you build a playground, you're gonna have ADA access, so. Yeah.
So Gaines Greenbelt, Sunset Valley Nature Area, what do we have? I know we have a trail connectivity that could be done by the Public Works.
Yeah, no, 41 to 250.
Okay,
All
right.
And
And
Indian
lower-
grass,
we have that, Indian grass, yeah.
94,369.
$94,000. Okay, and that's for,
It's mostly restoration.
bee box, pollinator boxes, restoration, signage that shows like the difference between Violet Crown versus this is a Sunset Valley Trail.
There's also the educational component
Yes,
that would be nice to put on the.
Indian grass, what other, That's right.
6107 Brody.
okay, I'm kind of looking at those as kind of like two, okay, so I think 6107 Brody, that's the more
That's the Creekside
more
one.
north. So the more northern one, I think, should be in Public Works, because that would be, we're recommending parking and the, water quality detention pound.
So 573, 668.
573, 668,
I got,
okay.
I got a question on that.
Yeah.
So is the proposed trail, is that including tearing down the house and getting rid of all the fencing?
It does not include tearing down the house. I think that's
That's
already.
cheap, it costs $5,000.
Well,
to
it
tear
depends,
down
because
a
I'm
house.
sure we're gonna have to do asbestos
It
abatement.
says asbestos.
So that's gonna drive up the cost a little bit, but I think that may already be in the, is that already in the budget this year? That was in there?
No.
They're pushing it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, so there's a question about doing that. And that would be taken care of out of any tax probably, is the demolition of the house.
That was 500 when we did it over on the corner. It was really expensive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You
but
guys are
I
hiring the
think,
wrong.
if I've heard correctly about what was on that property, I think it was a really bad property over there. I don't think this one has as many issues as that property
Such a
has.
small
That
house.
house was 500. Like, it was crazy. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Richard, did you have any more questions about this property at 6107
So then that'd be separate.
Just more of a comment is, you know, what came out in the survey over and over again is that people want trails and green space, not developed structures.
Right.
Over and over again. And if you took that property and didn't add parking to it, you save about $350,000, save over half the cost. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think as we look at all these, I think really focusing on the trails and open space. That's what people kept saying. Keep it wild, don't change. We don't care about structures. Even though I know we got a lot of nice structures planned, and it would be real nice for all of it.
The reason they put the parking there is because a lot of the residents don't like people driving on the Oakdale.
Oakdale Park for
Trails.
access.
They would put them someplace else.
I understand that 100%.
Yeah, you do.
End of line
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah. So we really like this idea because that helps the residents on Oakdale and it gives people, if they want to park and walk down to the other house that's gonna have maybe CSA, community garden, produce type, whatever nonprofit, that's an overflow parking for that, and you can just walk right a couple doors down. I kind of like this idea of just tearing down that house and having, it's the same footprint in the house, it's not extra impervious cover. It's, maybe we should think about this, because if we're really gonna do something with that other property, we don't have a ton of parking at that other property. So we don't wanna put more pavement on that other property. We don't wanna change the impervious cover ratios.
This may be one that we wait to discuss and kind of go down and say, and it may, be like, yeah, this will be nice, but not now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Manly Track, I guess you can put this under,
Here,
areas, yeah, Manly Track, 89,000 basically, give or take.
89,000 for just a shade structure? What else is
No
on
shade
that?
structure.
It's
I thought it was just like a
Restoration.
bench under the trees.
Supposed to tree planting and restoration, and no, we need to take this out, we're not doing it.
Yeah, there's no way to.
Oh yeah, we took out the shade structure, we're just putting benches under the trees there, okay.
6401 Brody is 704,000,
Okay, that's 616401.
6401.
Oh wait, this is 6407. Brody, okay. That doesn't require our budget except, what did we put in there? We didn't put a budget.
It has, it has parking and water quality and food forest and gathering space.
I
all
mean,
sorts of stuff.
technically, we could have whatever business nonprofit moves in there do all those things.
Exactly, no,
Yeah.
definitely, that could be
Yeah.
an option.
Yeah,
Let's go down to the areas real quick and do South Hills.
I'm just gonna write nonprofit RFP. Okay,
South Hills under areas,
Okay,
96,321, and then I think we missed something up here.
96?
Couple things in here.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
96, 321.
You catch the little park at the end of,
Yeah, that's where I'm catching the last pieces, yeah.
When we talk about the riparian buffer and maintenance, 24 shade trees, 8 ornamental trees, 32 tree standing, what's that?
Tree safety, putting safe on the trees so they don't fall over.
Oh,
Lisa, so let's go to,
Jones and Westgate has some art on it, I remember that.
let's add Upper Reach Drive
Okay.
is 163,538.
That's for water quality.
That's for no, because we're not
Flooding.
showing the red, it's for tree planting and a trail.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's the trail to the uplands.
Yeah.
I kind of feel, I hate to say this, but I went over there and it kind of already is a trail.
Yeah, no. The Montessori school builds a trail.
Yeah.
It literally feels like you could bike or walk it almost already. It just needs a little cleaning up.
Yeah, no, it does, so.
Okay, so trees and trail. And that's how much?
Hold on, I think I went past it.
You've
163,538.
You've serious flooding homes.
163.
No, there's a whole section that needs some.
Okay, so that's Upper Reese.
Then we have, hold on. Jones and Westgate,
Jones. Sorry if my handwriting is bad. Jones and Westgate, okay.
and that's
That's art.
68,125. Mostly art and some.
And
signage.
doesn't CED have a budget for that?
That's all mixed up in that 700,000-800,000.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Arts
That's,
Commission doesn't have anything to do with this?
Yeah, arts
no,
and
maybe
public
some anything as well, yes. I think a lot of the I don't know if you guys saw the new, box, Monarchs.
Yeah, I saw it, it's
So
awesome.
arts and CED kind of work together on those things.
But
Actually-
no, I thought public safety did, right? Also, public safety did the one over here.
They may have, but I think arts and CED approves
They approved the art.
the art
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so it actually gave them like 3 or 4 more locations to do stuff in.
Yeah, I was surprised to find out that came out of the public safety budget.
Sunset Trail, or.
Okay.
This is 10 Sunset.
Oh yeah, 10 Sunset, that's watershed.
$9,656.
I'm sure they will really appreciate that. That really protects the residents there from flooding.
So Valley Creek Park has an incredibly high price tag.
Okay, do we want to kind of look at that as like a semi-node?
Yeah, it's kind of a semi-node.
Valley Creek. Okay.
476, 420.
476, 420. Okay, so we have 3 major nodes.
Okay. And this all, under this line is just areas, nature areas and whatnot. Okay, these are just areas.
Okay, so those are the different spaces, and those are the price tags associated with each. Oh, 37 Lone Oak. We didn't put that one on.
I would group that in with 10
Yeah.
Sunset Trails, like protection for residents of flooding and stuff, so.
45,450. And we're actually already gonna do a tree planting.
Plan there.
We worked with the councilman on it, we're gonna do it, I think, October 26th.
Okay.
So we're already.
All right, 37, are we gonna tear down, does that include tearing down the fence?
Not that project, but I guess if we have enough volunteers, we could. Actually, we're doing, the tree planting will be there, and we'll do some at Valley Creek Park.
Okay.
So, 2 different things.
Okay, so this is for tree, but this budget, this 45K.
And they're wayfinding signage.
Trees, signs, but the signs are moving the signs deeper, and then
Yeah.
also removal of fence, right?
We can do that. I don't think that's that's not on.
But
the
that could be
cost.
like a public works.
Yeah, that's something we can do. It's not something we would be
Okay.
doing now. Okay, I think
All
we
right.
have everything in there now. So So,
Anyone see anything that kind of like jumps off the board?
I do.
what's that?
If you do all the stuff in the bottom, you do none of the nodes, I would call Valley Creek a node, because it's more expensive than City Hall.
Yeah.
It's just a name, but I mean, it's.
Oh, we forgot to write it, what it is, younger kid playground.
Yeah, just small, I don't know why it's so expensive,
That stuff is crazy expensive.
I'm assuming-
They're with schools.
I feel like if we did more with, if we were planning on doing this uplands, piece with the pavilion, then we might wanna just focus on just having that playground being used behind the elementary school more often.
Yeah, so one more suggestion, before you guys set this to council, maybe you should split your funding out. So that you know what's general fund and what is, like water.
And watershed protection, yeah,
Because your budget, you're in the budget plan right now. And
yes.
having that information would make it much more palatable and it will show.
Yes. So that's a good point. We could highlight what could, somewhat numbers with this green for green tax dollars. That could be
So-
low hanging fruit too.
I would say for these three, these are going to take planning. They're gonna take more, we're gonna need to have a plan. I would also recommend that we do it all at one time with one design firm so that there's some kind of continuity between the designs, basically. And so if we were going to, so this, that could be a phase one for this, is that we say we want X number of dollars to go toward planning of these areas, and then that just moves that kind of down the road, basically. And then we want X number of dollars allocated each year. Like maybe you say we want to do all the signage at once. I don't know, if that's something we want to do. We want to do all the signage, but we want X number of dollars allocated each year toward these restoration projects. Because we can't do this all in 1 year.
It's just because you don't have the manpower.
We don't have the manpower to do all of this.
But that whole lot down there is under 700,000, if I did the math in my head.
Yes, probably.
That's what the citizens said they wanted the most, was that area. So I think we ought to somehow focus on that. I understand we can't do it all.
And there's some of this that can be done through green tax and maybe doing some other things.
Well, let's identify.
I can't buy signage out of green
No,
tax,
no.
but I can do restoration.
So this can be green tax.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any signs there at all.
No, there's no signs.
The tree planting.
The tree planting, green tax. The,
Trees here and flooding stuff, we can do it, drainage, drainage, we can do drainage.
On upper rings.
Too.
Any water quality.
Water quality on 61.
You could also have,
Yeah,
like
like
AmeriCorps do a lot of stuff, right?
this is anything in green.
Yes, however, American Youth Works, their prices are going up, so we're gonna have to take that into consideration, because just like everywhere else,
Yeah.
they can't get people to work for $9 and promise of scholarship at some point.
Indian grass, restoration, green tax, right? Indian grassland, or there's minus the signage.
Right there.
Lower Cougar Creek, that's mostly restoration, right?
Yes, and there's a big signage proportion to all of them, and there's a huge contingency. However, I don't know if these prices, and I can ask Secure Robinson, but, and part of the problem, and I was explaining this to somebody else, is that it's not that, we could have American Youth Works go out and plant 500 trees this next year. However, we want to keep those trees alive.
Yeah.
And Public Works does not have the manpower to water 500 trees.
Right.
One of the reasons we're doing the tree planting at 37 Lone Oak and Valley Creek Park is that water is readily available and we can keep them watered.
Yeah.
We can't do that out in the South Hills. There's no water.
Yeah.
So whatever we do there is going to take time and effort to make sure that we have the water available to do that. So
This is awesome information. One of the other taxes that's available that I just want to throw in there aside from green tax is hot funds. So some of the wayfinding signage might be like destination pointing stuff. That could
There
be,
is some directional signage that is not,
yes,
that's separate, that we talked about doing, like
those could be.
at the Westgate entry saying,
Right.
Sunset Valley City Hall this way, or even at that Sunset Trail and 290 corner nearby, saying, hey, turn this way to get to, Great Shopping or whatever.
Also, can we do art
Art
can be
art
done.
can be done as
So we have art,
a portion of it.
I'm sorry, Helen, I know you have a comment. Art and wayfinding in, right. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to capture this when it was on the top of my head.
Wayfinding, it may be.
But it has to be pointing to destination like shopping, right?
Yeah, I think it has to be
Pointing
and that's
to-
kind of iffy, I'm not sure if
I
that.
don't think you have any budget.
Well, we used it for banners.
They use it for banners, but that's an advertising. So maybe, but it's gonna be very, very limited wayfinding. We can't do the trail wayfinding signage with that.
No, that's why I'm saying pointing to shopping.
Yeah.
I don't think you have any art left, because if you have art fest, art is a percentage of hot funds, it's a pretty small percentage. So you might have to be careful about saying art.
Is that an event or
No.
event?
Art
Yeah.
itself is a
It
small.
is a percentage of the hot fund.
And you can't max out that, and it already may be taken by art fest.
It might.
So I think you have to be a little bit
Okay.
concerned about thinking that.
Okay.
I think,
Technical
Thank you.
advisory.
I think you're more likely to get general fund dollars for all of that, so it's more likely what's gonna happen.
So, Helen, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
I still am having, let's take the South Hills as an example.
Okay.
We have our consultants who've given us this budget, just estimated budget. But I think a lot of these things can actually be taken out or put in phases or something, so it's not so, it doesn't shock the council. And I'm just gonna use the South Hills. We have this riparian buffer and maintenance, 41,000 for shade trees, ornamental trees, which I'm hoping they just needed for ornamental. And actually, we don't need a riparian buffer. What we need is to get some habitat back in there, just habitat restoration. That doesn't mean that we have to have 24 shade trees because one animal.
It's so dense in there, I can't imagine.
It's not really that dense in the South Hills. If you start going off a little bit and you'll see everything is dead.
Some fields, yeah.
Yeah, so putting in 24 shade trees, I think would be not a good idea right now with the drought, we don't know what's gonna happen. But if you can put in just habitat restoration, put a little less in there, and no consultant that I know is that we're gonna send out an RFQ.
Well, that's green funds.
And they're going,
Green tax, right?
okay, green tax.
Yeah.
But the point is, I don't know who can help us with that. It's not gonna be just the local engineering firm and whatever. It's gonna have to be somebody very specialized. And to kind of lump all this together, like we're gonna have a turnkey. I just would like to, at least the South Hills.
South Hills tree planting?
I don't think we need a tree planting in the South Hills. What we need is to look at the habitat and the blossom trees and try to start replenishing the soil, so that the trees can start growing again. And once they're there, we need to kind of get everything ready before you start planting trees in dead soil.
But I think they were just getting numbers here based on, okay, we did this many trees and blah, 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 blah.
I don't think we need any of that.
But so I think, and this is where, we
Right,
can,
refining is
these projects, like in the individual areas, need to be refined further. So we're not going to be planting any trees in the South Hills.
No, I realize that, but when the council looks at this, they're gonna look at, oh my God, the problems.
Yeah, well, let's remove
So,
that tree planting in South Hills.
Is it part of our job to actually look at some of these things and say,
I think
do we really want, and we do want pollinator nest boxes, although I'm making sure that, oh, yes, next box is, but, what are the things that we don't have to actually put in here right now and just have it over for phase 2 or phase 10 or something like that? So we can get started on some of these things.
Well, I don't think we need to say how much we're going to spend. I mean, I would say the committee would be better off saying, we want to spend, I think it's gonna cost $100,000 to, at least, to do the planning for all 3 areas, because that's probably conservative. You could say, we recommend spending this 3 major planning on the 3 major nodes. We recommend spending, X number of dollars on wayfinding signage, and as phase 1, basically. We're gonna plan these areas, we're gonna do west, and we recommend, we've already got money in the budget.
Wait,
for-
we already have a plan for this, don't we?
No.
No, it doesn't reflect ours.
It does, it somewhat does, so it's gonna take both of those things, and
To
you need
come
to
together.
actually move it on, because if we have a plan for that, then we can go and start looking for other money for it. Not
Yes.
city money,
We need the plan.
but we need to have a plan that's actionable, that we can say, oh, now we're gonna apply for this urban trails grant and get money to build trails in those areas. Now we're, so that we can have that to fall back on. And so, and I may even push that up to 150, just to be like, so that we,
Split the difference, 125.
125, that would work, just so that we know that that's gonna be, because there are 3 big areas, and we're talking about a landscape architect firm that's gonna come in. And I would say that we're looking for a landscape architect, is what we're looking at in those areas at this point.
Yes.
So it's like the preliminary kind of, here's where we are, put things out there, put the.
But
some
landscape
design to it.
architect, do they do children's playgrounds?
Yeah, no, they do playgrounds, they do the whole thing.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then we would go to, like, then you say these areas down here. So we have some money in the budget for kind of open space management. We already have a $15,000 in the budget, Indian grass prairie, project for this next year. We also, and so we don't have any money for signage anywhere besides what's in general trails, but definitely not enough to do this. Especially if we're doing steel posts and all that. So maybe you guys say, we wanna put X number of dollars towards signage and wayfinding signage, just so people aren't getting lost anywhere. And then we wanna make sure we have a good commitment to spend, maybe we wanna spend, because we're gonna hit Indian grass this year. I'm sorry, FY '23, we will hit Indian grass, we're gonna hit 37 Lone Oak, so these areas are already getting some attention. South Hills, maybe it's something we're continuing to work in South Hills, so through that. And so maybe there's just a number, a dollar amount you wanna put toward more restoration and habitat work. And maybe that we bring somebody in to do some of those projects.
So just to
I can
clarify what Helen means.
I can get the South Hills done, planning that for South Hills probably for free. It doesn't make sense to spend money on them. But we can go to folks out there in the community right now and show them the South Hills, and they can tell us what the issues are and what we can do about them. We don't need to spend money on a consultant.
No, I don't think we need to spend money on a consultant. I think we can do that.
No, that's just for the 3 nodes at the top, that's the consultant, the environmental consultant.
Yeah, I would like.
And what Carolyn's talking about is let's earmark money every year for restoration, environmental restoration in different areas, based on which areas we think need the most environmental restoration.
Habitat restoration, nobody wants to know it anymore.
However you want to say, but when you say habitat, you mean for animals, or are you saying for trees, or like, because that's also very broad.
What habitat is for animals, that includes trees and other stories. Habitat is like the whole shebang for all, anything that lives and uses that, which includes trees and.
New buzzword.
Yeah, new buzzword. We'll create a
I
new
mean,
buzzword.
I like it because it sounds like for animals, but.
I was talking about South Hills now because the whole, the rich
I'm worried about
South
fires. Is what
Well,
I'm
I'm
worried about.
hoping that Richard and I will keep working.
You took a clean up job, I was back there Monday, I was so careful.
Well, and Carolyn too.
Well, I was physically out there, but Mary Lee was in
Yeah,
and the other work staff.
My family, Mateo.
Mateo was out there.
I could not believe how good it looked.
I'm Me too, I was very impressed, because we had all the stuff there, then I went out 2 days later, and wow, they didn't.
I know, you get texting me and like, they're not here, what's going on? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're there.
By the way,
It's
Karen and I are
quiet
having
chipper.
a side chat about your chipper.
There's some species back there that we should try to get rid of too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, but why
I
not?
think we should be definitive about that. Invasive species removal, fire, protection,
Habitat
and
restoration.
habitat restoration. I think we should be very, and don't just say a generalized, throw a generalized term out there. This is exactly how much we want to earmark every year going forward, for
And
that.
if we could get $20,000 a year for AmeriCorps or whoever can come out and do something, that would be huge.
Yeah,
Did
you
you talk to the other people also,
Yes.
who are doing the other, because I think there's still, I'm just concerned that the Firewise and the creation of some of these, more, environmental climate activities that they gel. So sometimes I think when you're kind of clear cutting for fire things, you are having habitat issues and climate issues. So
I would disagree. I don't think that they're exclusive.
I don't think it's exclusive, I just think we should have somebody overseeing that.
I've read a lot of literature on it, and it doesn't mean,
You gotta let those guys with their chainsaws go in there and say, well, I don't like juniper. Cut out all the live junipers, because they're incredible habitat. So, no, you can't, and Carolyn would be the one, we had very specific instructions, although I must say we did cut down some of the Western while she wasn't looking.
They're amazing, that's good, and they're not protected. Ligustrum, Shineberry, they can all go tallow. Okay, so this kind of falls back to what we were talking about open space management and prioritizing it through open space management as well. So,
did you want to put that in green?
3 people from P&E are sitting here.
Yeah.
Welcome to your new comp plan. So that would be, so we're already working on some of these. I mean, we worked on Lower Cougar Creek, I think last year, doing a lot of mesquite kind of shaping and kind of thinning, and same thing for Upper Cougar Creek, we did a lot of that there too. It may be that we go ahead and do 10 Sunset Trail next year too. Maybe we do 10 Sunset Trail as a project as well, because that's
I'm
pretty darn CPG to do whatever we do.
Yeah, get some things up with that.
I love that, because water was so thick there.
So what you guys are saying then, so maybe what we do is we take these areas and we maybe, I don't know if we say take them, they get conglomerated into open space management basically,
Which is
it's where
really
they go.
meaning.
And so, and here's the thing is that, these are individual projects. Management is an every year thing.
Yeah.
And so we pick certain areas that we focus on every year, but we need to have funding. So Richard, $40,000 is in the budget for open space management. In addition to that, we have $15,000 in the current mayor's budget for a prairie restoration project, specifically in Indian grass, as well as there's $25,000 in the budget to keep picking up litter and removing litter from 290. Because everything that ends up there ends up in our creeks at some point. So to have continual litter pickup on those areas.
Did you put in for a chipper?
Chippers, 6-inch chipper.
It's already been
or
greenlit.
I think there's 7-inch chipper, it's in the budget as well.
And it's,
And it's greenlit, I think.
Well, nothing is greenlit until
It was
September
greenlit
27th.
at the budget, it was greenlit at the budget meeting.
So nothing is in stone until then, but yes, there's money to do some of these open space projects. We do need to refine the open space management plan. This goes back to what Councilmember Carmona was saying at a committee meeting,
Yes.
the council meeting. 'Cause
I don't want more tree planting.
he was talking more about this activity than anything else. So that would be there. So,
Okay.
and we had another council member ask, well, is that enough money? Is that enough money? No, obviously we have a lot of work to do. Is that enough what we can manage right now? Yes. And maybe we come back next year and say, you know what, we need 60,000. We made so much progress. We got so much work done with these different groups, because we're looking at 2 from some other ones that we may look at next year.
The other ones? Are you gonna consider
That's
the other
two.
ones? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, two.
So we may be looking at them, and so bringing in some other groups to help with some of these projects, if that's what they're doing, that's what they're trained to do.
Great.
So are you saying we don't need to worry about those areas of park? We don't need to allocate any money to that? Because I'm thinking, I want to put money. That's
We
where
can-
I want to see the money.
We can
For
say,
summer.
we can put more money in there and say, you know what, we wanna set, there's 800,000 right now. You could say, I wanna set aside 300, 400 of that toward these kind of projects.
Even if it doesn't get used in the first year.
Yeah.
You can
What I
hire
would
people
say,
with it.
though,
Yeah.
is that trails and connectivity did rank really high. So trail, maintenance and building new trails. So I know for a fact there's a new trail we recommended in Sunset Valley Nature Area, right here. That
Yes.
it jogs through, it cuts through on that area. I think we should put that as a priority. That's connectivity, and that's something people kept asking for over and over. Upper Cougar Creek, connectivity, those are trails, that's connecting, you know, to the shopping areas, and that's connectivity. What other trails do we have?
Uplands has trails.
Uplands has
Uplands
trails.
have improved trails.
And Upper Reese has trails. Upper
But-
Reese has trails.
I think
I'm just putting a little asterisk near the trail.
these, once this is done, I think we can get state funding for some of that.
Okay.
I would say maybe one of the things that comes out is that you guys recommend we do this trail next year,
Yes.
and that's probably, given how fast they worked on Upper Reese, the Reese connection, maybe
Yeah.
1 week of American Youth Works.
Yes.
And so we say we need $11,000 toward this project.
Mhm.
And then we need, like you said, X number of dollars set aside for open space management that we just keep chipping away at every year. And then we need, I don't know how much for signage, refining signage. And then we need that. That could be what you guys
RFP.
recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is an RFP.
Mhm.
These are gonna take a lot more thought
Mhm.
and a little bit more time probably
Mhm.
to, especially like, I mean, this
Well,
is
not
not
profit,
this,
right.
that'd be no problem, if somebody
Yeah.
wants to come along and do all that. But that's gonna take a lot more research to make happen.
This is.
And I'm sorry to everybody online, but you cannot see our board.
Can they even hear us anymore? Because I don't hear them at all.
Don't know.
It goes out after an hour or so.
Oh, so I'm trying to talk.
Oh,
I'm trying to ascertain where we're trying to budget. I'm not sure what we're actually doing.
You guys are awesome.
We're trying to create a new budget? Oh, wait.
Liz has her microphone on and I'm not hearing.
okay, let me re-log in. Let me hang up and redo this again.
This is the budget from the firm. Scares the shit out of me.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. To enable audio control.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear me?
We can hear you now too. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I guess the one that you want to say, which is not very funny, is that I'm not going to log out. But this was a good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input.
Okay, so I'm gonna move away from the board for now because do you want me to text you a picture of the board that we just made, Sasha and Liz? I can take a picture.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
It's easy, but.
Yeah, no problem. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna summarize our group's thoughts, and Carolyn's gonna take notes on what we've talked about so far, because we need to start kind of, getting our heads around what we're gonna be doing. All right, Sasha, are you with us?
are you there?
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay. So I think we should group our thoughts based on the three major nodes first. All right, is it safe to say that our recommendation is to create RFPs for these three areas? One RFP, for these three areas. For $125,000. Does that seem like a reasonable budget for someone to plan our,
I don't think we would,
Yeah.
plan, I don't think we can put a dollar.
I mean, we got this plan for $50K. We should be able to get $125K, that's
Yeah, I think that's, we can shoot for that, yeah.
Yeah.
More than enough, yeah.
I think after we get the plans back, we'd like to identify water quality projects where we can seek funding through, what did you say, state funding for restoration?
I think you're gonna, there's some funding for that will be available, but, I think you're also gonna be able to get funding for like the structural types of things and trails themselves. There's a lot of funding out there for those types of activities.
From
And playgrounds, there's playgrounds, funding too.
So, let me ask you,
Where did it come from? Just curious.
Texas Parks and Wildlife does a lot of trails stuff.
so let me ask you this then, do we need to have like a loan writing officer assigned as another step to this process? Because there are people who specialize in this and that's all they do for their job.
So not this year, you wouldn't need that because you're doing plans.
I'm saying after we get the RFP back.
After you get the RFP back, and then the city may need to hire a grant writer.
I want to put that in our recommendations, because we need to itemize exactly our thought process of the flow of this.
We don't have a grant writer?
No, we don't, not on staff.
I mean, like
A grant writer for parks and
a contract grant writer we use?
No, we don't have a contract grant writer.
I mean, well, yeah, I guess we don't do that anymore. Okay, yeah, never mind. We,
But committee also recommends, looking into using green tax venue dollars where appropriate for these projects. Particularly uplands where a water quality bond will be needed, or water quality feature will be needed.
So,
Lisa, you don't include the planning for the Valley Creek Park? I mean, to me, it's equal to those other notes.
I mean,
It doesn't seem to fit.
we didn't
anywhere.
identify it as a major node. It was a lower ranking priority in our results, so we didn't put it as a high priority.
I didn't realize it was really lower.
Yeah, we kind of made that up. We're like, well, it needs to be quote unquote upgraded, so maybe if we made it into a little kids playground. I think you remember when we kind of came up with that, you were at that meeting.
I think at the last meeting, when you were, I think, online,
You were online.
I think that discussion came up about kind of downgrading Valley Creek Park and not doing a whole lot.
You got,
making it different than it is currently, basically.
because we didn't want to attract a lot of people to that area,
Yeah,
because it's
I
a
think
very
I hear
intimate
that. So-
neighborhood gathering.
So that budget is way off?
I agree, yeah. I think it's
Way off.
Okay.
I think you put Valley Creek Park right now down below with these areas where we're talking about plantings of trees and wayfinding signage. And then
And
eventually
maybe a
go
couple
back
picnic
to
benches.
Okay, so that's a recommendation. When we send these costs over to them, we're gonna say, hey, that Valley Creek Park.
We already had that in the recommendations. I was surprised to see this number.
Yeah,
So we asked.
we may ask Dr.
Fix it.
Vera Robinson to come back with some
Okay.
number on that, so.
Then can we take some of that?
Hello?
Yeah, Sasha?
Hi.
Hi.
I was just gonna say that in the suggestion of the committee recommending allocating X amount of funds, in the case of the uplands, there's already a study that exists that somehow we need to address the fact that we've already spent money on that, and that either that we allocated $125,000 or less if not required, because of the fact that money is already spent on that.
And money's also been spent on Upper Cougar Creek.
We can't, we're not really doing the sunk cost fallacy on this because this is a fresh recommendations. That had a turnaround driveway at the end of the street, that had a different layout, that had, it had some great ideas, and we definitely referred back to that a bunch throughout these meetings. But because this is a different vision for that, it needs a new rendering.
Are you talking about Upper Cougar Creek or the uplands?
I'm talking about the original Uplands plan. It isn't exact to what our committee recommendations are. And our Upper Cougar Creek plan isn't exact to what CDD and Wanda Reed spearheaded for. We have slight revisions to all those. A lot,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that I won't be quiet.
No,
No, that
we
was
want
good.
you to talk.
Very good thoughts, yeah.
The same firm did the work, so they were very familiar with the Uplands proposal.
For that.
Okay, so let me see if
Sorry.
I got what y'all are changing you down here, all water quality. Okay. Okay, does that capture the no discussion?
Yes, committee recommends allocating $125K for planning these three nodes, planning of the three major nodes. Upper Cougar Creek, Uplands, and City Hall. It'll be a single RFP for an architectural design firm. Do you want to specify? Or, I mean, what did not,
You need more than that, you're gonna have to have, engineers and environmental, turnkey.
Maybe we'll use the subcontract those out.
well, we have our in-house engineer firm that we already work with a lot.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sure they'll get,
They won't be doing,
Talk to you about engineering firm.
it would be separate from, because this is the more preliminary, this is more the architectural part of it. Not really separate, this isn't civil engineering.
a landscape architect design firm. To design all three, these should move the project to a stage. I would say projects, you can put a parentheses for as, because it doesn't need to be one single project, projects, yeah. To a stage where the city can explore sourcing other funding opportunities, yeah, okay. I just want to make it seem like the city's granting other third-party funding, maybe other,
So, and do we want to put in here that having one firm will help create cohesion between the three areas?
I mean, yeah.
Carolyn, I heard you say something, but I didn't quite understand what you said.
I said that having,
Three areas.
yeah, having one firm do the design for all three will help to create a cohesive kind of plan. For all of them, so that they all kind of blend together, so it's not like one design here and a different design there, and it's just more of a cohesive kind of atmosphere.
So we should consider contracting a grant writer at this stage of the project, correct? The SIG committee would also like to consider the use of venue fund for all of our, venue funds. I would put it in quotes, green tax, in case there's people reading it from the city who don't know what venue is, green tax.
Okay.
I would put the word funds after green tax, remove the word funds from before, for all water quality aspects of these projects. Okay. Of which several qualify, right? Okay, so, next up, we're gonna talk about trail connectivity, ranked very high amongst residents. And we would like to prioritize the following areas. Sunset Valley Nature Area, additional trail link.
Let's say $12,000 be allocated.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Is that what they put in their budget? I don't know.
No, actually, I'm gonna look, I don't think it was in their budget, so it needs to be added to that budget. So that's something we'll
This
discuss.
is really good to come out of this meeting with these kind of
Is
numbers.
this the one where you're gonna go across the creek?
Yes,
And so you're gonna do that? I mean,
well, us and American Esports.
okay.
And I would say Upper Cougar Creek Trails.
Yeah, but that's gonna be part of this.
I
That's
know,
gonna be
part of
that.
the larger RFP. I mean, I think right now that's like, upgrades to Indian Grass Prairie is already in the budget, but that's restoration. What other wayfinding trail type stuff do we have?
Well, we
in there?
have the wayfinding signage that would be throughout the entire trail system.
Yeah, I think we should put in, a portion of the, a portion should be of, wayfinding signage should be prioritized. And areas of the greenbelt should be identified where, hikers are more likely to get lost. Because to me, that takes priority over just like having pretty signs. Where do they most likely get lost?
The sound does.
Conservation and the
That's
signage
usually
that,
where I hear from
Yeah.
people being lost.
a lot, yeah. But so you can say wayfinding signage. Guys, please chime in, I don't want to be taking over the conversation here, if you have other areas or whatever.
I think you're doing fine.
So what if we say location and placement is going to be determined by discussions with standing committees? Because public safety does it, P&E does it, things like that.
Yes. By stand,
Discussions with standing committees.
priority placement of signage in areas where hikers are more likely to get lost and areas that need clear delineation. You know what I'm talking about, like where there's a Violet Crown, Two Sons of Valley Trail, or, you know, those kinds of.
I'm gonna say, good examples in there, the Southwest Conservation Area and, the interconnection with Violet Crown Trail.
Yes.
If we could put some barriers up, while the social trails are, that would help a lot. We wouldn't get lost. We would have to have a bunch of signs.
Barriers for the what trails?
On social trails, just put some blocks for the social trails, so people won't take those and then get lost.
Okay, how much restriction is,
Social
I'm gonna
trails.
say, safety signage as well gets a higher
People
ranking
just
with
do
our
that.
group, because there was a lot of talk about, things being unsafe, so this committee also recommends for this wayfinding signage and signage in the green belts to include, and to also correspond with, results in the survey that, residents are concerned about bikes, off-leash dogs, you know, like, that was a really high,
Those are the two
like,
big
I heard that over and over again, like, how do we say this, safety signage?
I just put as well as safety concerns, and then what,
Yes.
they make a separate recommendation to council that council needs to consider some of the, enforcement and ordinances in some of those areas maybe, because
Yes,
that may be something that has to be.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of signs.
yeah,
The people
Yeah.
know they're not supposed to have
Enforcement.
their dogs
Yeah, yeah.
off leash.
but like Wanda, for instance, talked about, like, there's a place where bikers come around in the Sunset Valley Nature Area where, like, they come around a turn and she can't see around, so it's really dangerous. And she was like, is there any way to have, like, a look at that, maybe, like, either a mirror on a tree?
I heard her say that.
Yeah, we
That's
can't put a
kind of
mirror on.
mirror on a tree in the trails makes me.
That makes me nervous.
Well,
catch fire.
I don't know, like, I just,
Not happening.
like, I wanna be able to address, like, any safety concerns as a priority, just because that makes sense.
Okay, one of the things that we just like to go through in our streets, we can put, buffers. You can put something down in the trail to the cyclist has to slow down. Or he's
Well, that's
gonna
good.
get- Yeah, he's gonna get bumped off his bicycle. That a person
Really
will walk
long.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a speed bumps for cyclists, and we just make it private. I
think we should work with public safety and planning and environmental committee on making safety a higher priority in the trails.
I like the words enforcement. I
Yeah,
think that
enforcement,
really needs to be in there.
yes.
I hope our police presence is not just monitoring the situation.
They're just talking to people, well, I don't know what he's doing now, but when I talked to, when he first started doing this,
Okay.
he would just tell people.
We've been
He
doing that
wasn't
for a
issuing
long
tickets.
time.
Yeah, I think they need to start issuing tickets and get a little bit tough.
Okay.
Okay, so here, I added a couple things. The committee recommended, so really what needs to happen is then we need to do some clearing and maintaining those lines of sight around the corner. So maybe that we remove a little bit of understory so that people can see
See
if there's no
Yeah.
bikes coming around corners.
Boom,
that are
that's
kind of-
great.
Kind of.
Love that,
I
I
think
love
a
that.
visual tunnel, don't remove this part, let me just start walking with.
Yeah, no, yeah, so let me
We'll remove the
whole-
trees, just the understory.
How about we say thinning, so it's.
Thinning, yeah.
There's probably only a few places that's really.
I think they
I know
probably
one place.
I know what thing she's talking about, I think. It is pretty scary.
This committee also recommends increased enforcement of trail and leash regulations.
Yes.
Okay, okay, so back up here, how much money would you recommend as part of the, for wayfinding signage?
I mean,
Huh?
Not much.
It's much, 50 bucks.
I want to get a sign from that sign.
I would say
We'll give
50K.
everybody a compass.
Yeah, I would say you need at least 50K will be the starting point, and then we should probably make the recommendation that we look for cheaper alternatives than steel. So it's
Yeah.
expensive.
You know, I like the maps we have.
They need to upgrade.
Some of those maps are not oriented properly.
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
standing there, and it
exactly.
says, Brody's over there, and I know
Thank
Brody's
you.
over there.
Oh my gosh.
That's okay
Please.
for me. And it's only a few. But those
Right.
maps are great if
city also recommends map upgrades to houses that have maps.
I mean, I would prefer that over a sign
And
that just says.
Correspond with Canals and Company.
Now you're on the trail.
Allocating, and those signs are expensive too, to read,
Right.
because they're like a graffiti resistant and stuff like that. They're signs that, you know, that are hard to mess up.
But I think a map is good, and people have so many apps on their phone right now, that they shouldn't be getting lost.
Oh, we also recommend those codes, remember, the maps to be upgraded with the QR codes. So let's allocate 15K just to upgrading wayfinding, like safety, mappy kind of sign.
I think we're gonna need, even if we go for aluminum, signs and stuff are very expensive.
Well, we did
Those
50K for wayfinding, but
Oh,
for
okay.
the other maps, the, you know, the ones with the graffiti resistant, whatever. the
Okay,
map-
trail signage, okay, yeah, we could probably do that for,
If we're trying to keep it kind of natural looking back there, it seems like a perfect Eagle Scout project. We have, like, we can find lots of nice, big, straight cedar logs. And you can make wayfinding signs out of a cedar log and then strip it, you know, for the
the
song.
community just voted on wayside finding signs.
Yeah, we already have it.
So they want a kind of uniform branding across the city of stuff.
Yeah, but trails shouldn't be branded.
They got it.
Finding to me is in the shopping center.
No,
Well,
wayfinding signage is
think
straight
about
up.
those map signpost areas, those should be branded with the rest of the city, like it should all be cohesive.
And so that, if you look at those things, they're outdated. They're specific branding. Even the wayfinding corner signs are, you know, they're part of that branding and image of the city, basically.
Here it says, maybe you could make one area natural, maybe you could ask them to leave one area alone, like South Hills, and put in natural signs. I think people would really like that better than.
I think we're trying to do a garish thing, have you seen the signs, can you pull up the signs?
Yeah.
They're really painful on your knee.
I've seen the signs, I mean, I voted on them, so.
They're probably gonna blend in a lot more than you think. Let's see.
I understand, I know it was.
Yeah, it's the,
Okay.
just in case. I don't know, and apparently it's closed, I can't even get it, so.
Outcome, do you have outcome up?
Let's see.
Nope.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, if you're listening, post those responses.
Okay, so do the trail link, do some
Yes.
wayfinding signage, do some
Yes.
upgrades to the actual signs themselves. Thinning, maintaining the line of sight, increased enforcement of trail and leaf regulations. So that's kind of, so we have then we have the trail connectivity, then we have, now let's go to.
Does the
open space.
65K include labor to install the
I'm
signs?
sorry.
Are
no,
we,
it's
do we
50.
have a
Yeah.
budget number we can throw in there for trail restoration? Is that not in this area?
Oh, we're getting to that next. That's our next bullet point.
Restoration.
What do you mean?
Restoration will be our
What
next
would your
one,
restoration be?
Putting down
like,
the cedar stuff. on top.
if you scroll up,
They did put blocks to keep the water from eroding.
Oh, okay, so,
There it is.
okay.
Put it in, water off, just whatever to clean them up where they're not clean.
So
Yeah,
erosion
what I
control,
wanna do
that
now
makes
is-
sense.
We've got areas where you can climb, but it's so eroded that it's really.
Is it gonna be, it's C, right, or D?
C, okay, C,
Yeah.
restoration,
This is gonna be
restoration, no, this is just a restoration bullet point. Like, this is like, this committee recommends, the open space management, plan, like have a budget allocated annually. And we'll discuss that as a committee, how much that should be for, let's just go through the list, right? Erosion control,
you know, all the whole list, replanting,
You gotta do soil, you gotta get our soil spread back up. It's reasonably-
so what do you recommend, crushed rock for that, for mineralizing, remineralizing topsoil?
No, there's some really good websites that, mostly on our hillsides, we just need to get some of our logs perpendicular to the hill so that we're not losing our soil. And then we can, once you do that, it's just not gonna run off. Then we start figuring out how to enhance it. Rich should go do it on his own if we leave the hardwoods there and the
Erosion
rock.
fire safety, yeah, fire maintenance. Yeah. So, what did you call that? Enhancement and soil enhancement and, conservation, soil conservation? I would say remineralization, because remineralization is what you're ultimately after of the soil.
Well, organic, we're trying to get organic added back to the soil, so the layers been washed away. I'm just talking, right now I'm talking about the hill, both hills, where there's just no, all the trees are down this because the soil was washed away.
So what ends up happening is minerals leach down every time it rains, deeper and deeper. And the soil becomes less and less able to sustain life, so it weakens, the soil weakens over time, right?
Well, the soil's gone, the topsoil's getting washed away.
Right.
There's the topsoil.
So soil
So
conservation.
topsoil
You're trying to
restoration.
restore
Restore the
soil.
soil.
Yeah, but the first thing you do is stop the soil from washing away, which is putting all our logs perpendicular so that they.
Right, well, okay, yeah, but that's,
And then usually we have a lot of organic matter there already, rotting hardwood trees that
Absolutely,
just spread out
weeds,
out
everything.
there.
yeah.
And it's a big,
Okay. So,
it's a big project, but all we have is time.
did you have reforestation of areas? Reforestation and, habitat restoration with a focus on planting native, species, because that came up in the survey a lot. Habitat restoration and native species, planting.
Habitat restoration.
Yeah,
that native species
with
are
native
similar.
species planting, yeah. But it just because I want people to feel like their voices were heard from the survey, and I think whatever we type today can't be some new thing, it has to reflect what the survey said.
Okay, so recommends the park and space management, so it needs to be revised,
Yes.
and we need to have that, the following
The
components
focus
for
on
each
the
area.
following. The plan should have the following components for each.
No, we don't need it. We don't need it.
Isn't habitat restoration the same thing as reforestation?
No. Not necessarily, what if it's grassland? That's not a forest.
Well, no, I mean, habitat restoration includes, as a general term, including everything.
Everything.
So I don't.
So we're gonna use that instead of riparian improvements and floodplain restoration,
So just remove all the others.
habitat restoration. Okay,
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's better.
okay, that's fine.
And also, just for example, invasive species removal is part of habitat restoration.
Absolutely.
I like having invasive species.
I like it, I like being really descriptive.
I understand it's a part of it, but I think we got some
You want
nasty stuff going on back there in my neighborhood.
in some areas, yes.
Including barbed wire fences.
I think it's always better to use the small words for people to understand it better.
Why is it?
I have to
This sounds too big, people might not know what we mean.
I haven't been over there.
Okay, guys, let's focus back on the budget and our recommendations. So what do we want to do with do we want to request an RFP from a 501c3 for the future visioning and year 2 of 6401 Brody?
Oh,
Do we
wait.
need to do a survey of existing 6401 Brody?
Are we supposed to have a budget number? for
Yes, yeah, that's what
restoration?
we-
For the budget
Yeah.
number, right?
So how much are you guys recommending? And this could be a set aside this much, but we're not gonna spend it all in 1 year kind of thing.
I think we should, earmark like, whatever corresponds with what P and E recommends for this budget, a line item.
So but how, we should probably say, give a message to council saying, one of the things that came out of the survey was definitely restoration and habitat and doing this type of work.
Yes.
And maintenance kind of activities in these areas. So I think you guys can send a message to council saying, we think X number of dollars needs to be set aside in a fund for continual, for these projects and for the restoration and enhancement of these areas. And you guys, yeah.
This committee recommends the Parks and Open Space.
150,000 a year? Is that too little, is that too much?
Probably too little. Well,
It's
no,
about
no,
250.
probably not 150, because one thing, we have to have the staff to be able to do it, and
That's-
somebody to manage it, and I still want Carolyn to have it.
So what do you think, Carol? Do you think 150,000 would get us a lot done or not enough?
150,000 could get a lot done.
We
Yeah.
just augment
Can you
it.
deal with 150?
That's the question, is can we manage $150,000 worth of work in 1 year?
No, because if you look at what happens in budget, we have this pie in the sky, sky's the limit budget, and then how would you say our track record is as a city of completing these projects? 50%, 60%? And then this budget, we have all this leftover money because we couldn't get it all done. There's too many things, too many people want too many things.
Carolyn needs an assistant.
So I don't think you can,
I think it don't be.
so,
But can we put a set of fire maintenance, we're not exactly maintaining fires, how about fire repression or something like that?
fire mitigation.
Fire mitigation.
And
All right,
flood mitigation. Fire and flood mitigation.
Okay, he recommends that, let's take that, say there's that $200,000.
Yeah.
Or say, of that, of the $800,000, we said, I don't know, what'd you say?
$100,000 a year.
Okay.
That's a lot of money,
Uh,
isn't it?
How about, of that, but, go ahead.
Of the
I was
200.
just gonna ask, are you pulling these numbers based on the estimates that we saw in the previous budget that we were looking at? Or where are the numbers coming from?
We're trying to be realistic about what we can accomplish in a year.
Okay.
So we already know that we have 15K that's going to Indian Grass Prairie this year. And we'll be lucky if we get 2 more projects. We know 37 Love's gonna get, tree plantings. You know, there's only so many things you can do in a year. So what does the committee recommend for a budget?
What if we did,
Okay.
if we get the youth court available.
Where
since it's
the, how you're coming up with the numbers? Is it based on, for example, the above topic about 50,000 for sign increase? Where are we pulling that number from?
so there's $800,000 set aside for some of this work
Beautification.
and beautification,
Right.
parks and open space. And so on that, we were just making an estimate for the signage. It's not to try to get it for that price, because hopefully it doesn't cost as much as, we're not doing steel posts, we come up with aluminum or something that's cheaper. So that's where we're just put a number to that, about 65,000 basically would be the signage number.
Maybe we ought to say something, Sasha, up at the top that says, although, we've received large budget numbers back, and, we don't expect to get all this accomplished, therefore the committee recommends this is a very reasonable annual budget, or these items, you know, maybe we should address what you're asking at the top and kind of explain our thinking somehow.
I think that might be helpful somewhere, just because,
Yeah, it's not that we're throwing out the rest of the numbers, we're not, you know, rejecting their budget in lieu of what we're recommending. We've analyzed their budget and have kind of cherry picked the following as like, I don't wanna say cherry pick, but how do you?
reach the conclusion that the following.
Yeah, reach the conclusion, right?
That year. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, like if we could have at the beginning of this, I know we're supposed to have a number right now. Carolyn, we're going to defer to you.
Okay, so, because what you were saying, Richard, was like, let's set aside money for all of that, let's do that bottom portion. So what if we said, because we know we can't do it all in 1 year, what if we said, we are recommending we set aside $300,000, which could get the majority of that, especially with pricing for open space and stuff, $300,000 of that total aside to do the projects in those areas.
Can we do it based on a percentage, like we feel we can accomplish like 20% every year?
Well, and remember, yeah, because there's a,
Can we spread that out over years?
over a period of years to do that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
5 years.
60,000 years.
The green spaces and conservation areas.
Yes. But didn't P&E say they wanted 200K to accomplish what came out of Parks and Open Space annually, or for the coming budget year? I remember that's the number we requested.
Yeah, the committee did, but they just threw out a number. They
Right.
had, yeah.
But we can tell them how they're gonna spend it now.
Over the next, you said how many years? Next 5 years? Yeah. Okay, so basically set aside $300,000 within the green, for projects within those areas, and we'll then prioritize, these projects will be prioritized through the Parks and Open Space Management Plan.
Yes.
So as
Realizing that's
as
only
opposed to
60,000 a year.
complete different projects, complete maybe the proposed projects or the identified projects.
This committee has identified, 10 Sunset Trail, Indian Grass Prairie, and 37 Lone Oak as the first 3 projects. Because we know there's money behind Indian Grass Prairie, 37 Lone Oak and 10 Sunset Trail is easy, low hanging fruit.
Easier.
It's gonna be good. We're not gonna be restoring anything in those areas, are we?
Well, we're gonna do prairie restoration and Indian grass.
Right.
We,
Prairie Lane
and
properties.
we don't have to put 37, that's coming out of this year's budget. We're gonna use urban forestry money to do plantings on 37 Lone Oak. I would say 10 Sunset Trail. What do you guys think about Jones and Westgate? That's an entry area to the city. I mean,
That's for art though, we haven't gotten to that yet.
for art, it's for art goes. I think there's some other stuff involved in that, wasn't there? I don't think
There
it's
was
just art.
a bench or something, but then didn't someone decide they didn't want people loitering?
Yeah, there is a.
Yeah, well, let me just say, I think that is primarily a dog park for all the apartments in the area.
There's gateway signage there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gateways.
Gateway
We really want to do, it would be nice if we could have some impact on the trails.
Yeah.
Early, because that's the
Yes.
number one thing people want was
Trail connector.
trail restoration.
Yep. Well, we've identified some of the trails in the previous paragraph.
I just don't think they think that park at Jones and Westgate constituted a trail.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't, it's more of a dog park for the apartments.
no. Okay. So, and I put this at the ranks very high within the survey results, restoration, conservation. doing the open space management plan, setting aside this much money within those areas to complete the proposed projects within the next 5 years.
Yes.
And then,
That's not much money for a year. Okay,
with the 75,000.
that's 60,000 a year. That's cheaper, total 300,000. That's not a lot.
You go
Well,
for
I,
400,000.
honestly though, I'm just thinking about what's doable. What can we actually accomplish? I think it makes everyone look bad when we have so many things on the budget and then only half of them get done.
Well, but again, we don't have the staff to get them done, and that's a real issue, and it's,
So do we need an RFP to accomplish some of these from the third party?
well, then the third party, that's, so,
Well, like you said, they might have a big project one time, and then a lesser one some other time, so.
downtown.
Like Upper Cougar Creek trails, we could take all of the 300K and then some.
Yeah, this would be separate, set
That's
aside
separate,
separate from
that's not the
trails.
nodes project.
Yeah, this is,
This is simply
This
open
is
space.
simply, yeah.
We said Indian Grass Prairie Restoration.
Yeah, Indian Grass Prairie, 10 Sunset Trail, 37 level tree planting, and, Sunset Valley, well, we already have that in.
South Hills Conservation Area.
I would put something in the South Hills.
South Hills.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
inspired, yeah.
Well, what about the,
Some more.
you know, like that trail when you're heading into Sunset Valley Nature Area where there's all like the erosion on the left-hand side, right after you get off the sidewalk area and you're kind of going like on that crest, like, you know what I'm talking about? It's
I
like
don't know where you,
really like kind of eroded where it goes.
where do you, what Sunset Valley Nature Area?
Okay, so you're
Where
going
you
into
entering it?
Sunset Valley Nature Area behind City Hall, and you're on the paved track. And then you get off the paved track and you're walking kind of slightly to the right, and there's like a big slope to the left of the trail. It's like real eroded on the trail right there, and I always feel like I'm gonna fall.
We're gonna talk about the, oh, I know where you're talking about.
It's like maybe a water area,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
there's
left,
a
there's
water
a
area
water
there.
area there on the left.
So,
But that like is like another example of like where it's dangerous, but it also needs trail restoration, but somebody could just kind of fall off, or their bike could fall off, or
Okay, well,
I
that's.
don't know, like erosion, it's an erosion and safety opportunity. So like identifying those areas where like, maybe it's a walk of P&E, it has to go all together and walk the trails and be like, this is the area that needs the trail restoration, right here, you
And
know?
each one of us have our own trails that we can probably hang out on. So
Yes.
we could certainly help, like, we probably know the South Hills, and you know your side as well, back there. I don't do the nature areas so much anymore, just because I love the South Hills.
I do both. And I do Lower Cougar Creek sometimes too, so.
what if,
We could get Joe Poison to take us over on the West Prairie.
You would love that.
Yeah.
You would love that.
what
In
if,
September.
because all of these things in here that you're proposing, most of these things, for restoration are, you know, they can be, you know, under kind of a venue tax kind of thing.
Yes.
What if we, instead of saying we're gonna set aside 300,000 of that 800,000, what if we set aside some of the money that's in venue tax and put it in a kind of reserve fund within venue tax?
That's a good idea.
Can we do
For
that?
restaurant.
You can make that restoration.
We don't have the authority to really do that.
You can make that restoration that you say, we would set aside $300,000 within the venue fund to be committed to these projects over the next, because
Yes,
then you just funded that and it's not in the general fund.
that's right, and then they can't spend those.
I can't buy the signs out of there, that's gotta come from the general fund. But we can do erosion control, all day and night out of venue fund.
We're gonna recommend that, let's recommend 400,000.
No, we can definitely.
Well, how much
Set
is
aside
currently in the venue tax fund?
like $1 million or so.
we also have to remember that city may want to acquire property with that for water quality protection purposes. So we don't want to just treat it like it's just, and if there is a big water event, like flooding or something, we need to also rely on that.
Flooding will fall under drainage.
Well, we don't know that we're gonna get it, we're just asking for it.
Let's see.
Right.
We can't,
Right.
The committee just can.
we're just making a recommendation.
Okay, so.
So, hold on, let me go back to that, let me double check.
Lisa,
At 350?
I think, I'm sure.
Like, if a property came on the market and we already earmarked 350 of it, they wouldn't have the money to purchase. Let's just say, Jim Gaines' property at the end of Pillow comes on the market and Pelodians have been asking for trail access. We wouldn't have the money in the green tax fund to purchase his property because that would be all accounted for with this. You see what I'm saying?
So,
But
and that would be about $2 million.
Yeah, right.
I don't think we'd have enough money right now in Vinnie to buy that property.
No.
Even if we did, I mean, so we would have 1.56 million in that fund.
Yes.
Purchase in Eastville like I wanted to do on
Yeah.
Robert's property if we didn't do.
Yeah, or purchase
So
easements,
there
right?
would be 1.56 million in there, you're saying set aside 400,000 of that, and that becomes for these
Over the
projects over the next 5 years.
Over the next 5 years, that makes sense. Yeah, let's do that.
Basically,
I agree with
then
that.
you have a committed fund within the venue tax that's saying we're gonna spend it on these projects.
Yes. But why are we listing them if we have all of these?
Good point.
We can just take them
Because
off.
we can.
Yeah, we need to have them
afford
all.
All of those.
Yeah, we have to put them all on
Within
there.
that dollar,
Yeah,
over 5 years.
but not Jones and Westgate doesn't really qualify, but
Yeah, no, that's gonna be, because that was
all those
mostly
other
signage.
areas do.
But by doing this, you just freed up money that they can say, oh, we can use this to go build the gateway signage over there. and
Yes.
stuff. So you just freed it up for them to be able to make that decision and to do other projects in other areas, but at the same time with these projects done.
Right.
So next 5 years, okay, so
Brilliant.
this will be, the project will be, what do we want to say? The project will be prioritized through the open space, the revision of the open space plan.
management, prioritize farm safety, health and well-being, whatever kind of way of citizens, residents.
So, because we really already have the majority of next year's, some of those projects that we'll do,
Yeah, I love that.
basically. So they're already kind of in the budget, so we know this year this next budget year what we're doing.
Yes.
So this way we can start working on revising that plan and having it ready for the next budget year, basically. That's what that is. Okay, so now we have addressed that.
So I wanted to say about the two Brody properties. So council brought up that we recommend a site visit to 6401 Brody for all council members. And a proper survey be done of the property, because I imagine it's outdated and hasn't been done in a long time. Like a layered survey of the property. And an inspection of the house.
All city council members visit the property.
To visit the property, a proper survey be done, with a surveyor or whatever. And inspection of the house by a certified home inspector for safety purposes or whatever. And,
And you know there's asbestos there.
I'm talking about 6401.
6107 Brody.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's very much asbestos.
I wouldn't do a home inspection of 6407 and it's just gonna get torn down. I'm talking about make sure the home is inspected, make sure everybody does a walkthrough, make sure everybody's aware of it, and the current state of everything. And then, work with, planning and environmental to create an RFP for a 501c3 bid on the property to benefit the community. Because planning and environmental that would fall probably under their purview.
We're just gonna say develop an RFP.
Yes,
Planning environmental, I mean, they develop RFP for this project, so.
that's right, that's right. And then- Okay. This committee also recommends decreasing the Valley Creek budget for the younger kids playground to a lot lower. How much do you guys want to decrease that? Because that is a very big budget.
So this is what we're giving the council. I thought we were gonna ask Esther Robinson.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna ask
Yeah.
Esther Robinson. But this is in our meeting notes, right? Is this our meeting notes or
Well,
is this new document?
Well, this
This is
is,
a new document.
no, this will be the minutes, which I will then
Eight
take,
minutes.
copy over and give to city council. So
Yes.
we can ask Asper Robinson separately that we aren't necessarily, we're gonna ask them to lower that. Because I think what we're really looking for is that when it's time to replace the swing set, we buy a new swing set and a new swing set.
Yeah.
When it's time, like, to replace the seesaw and jungle gym,
Yeah.
we buy something kind of similar to that, and we may have to change some safety surfacing, but we're not talking about building a new playground, are we?
We make it like,
$500,000.
Well, that's more expensive than some in City Hall.
I don't know.
But we don't have to put that in this.
No, we don't have to put that in that.
Well, that's should be a part of our meeting notes.
Yeah,
I mean, but, I just didn't know if she needed for our meeting notes. Okay, so for 6401.
what are we saying, we're gonna have them to use the facility to,
Benefit the, community, to, okay, we did not make any recommendations for art yet. Did we want to just say to, how do we want to prioritize the art budget? Because it kind of seems like we made recommendations that on our map, on our plan, and I think they're pretty close to what CED is recommending, but how do we want to talk about that?
It seems like we ought to just let CED and the Arts Commission decide that, and just defer to them.
Yeah.
Just say that, we defer to them to do it.
Yeah.
I think that art where it should go.
Right.
so can you guys read this and make sure this works?
Side of our,
Yeah, we
side of our,
Appendix.
just leave that out.
thank you.
So we've got
One quick note, Carolyn, I hate to kind of like throw this in there, but in terms of like the three major nodes, do you think that the Uplands project should include the trail to Upper Race Drive? Because those two kind of go together, and without the Uplands Pavilion, the Upper Race Drive project is kind of dead. So I would move that trees and trails into the Uplands.
Okay.
So that becomes a part of the major node of their planning for that RFP. I mean, it's minor. What do we want to recommend for 6407 Brody in terms of site stuff? That's not gonna happen right away, but I'm sure it's top of mind because we just recently purchased property. Do we want to recommend council's site visit on that property as well, or no?
Yeah.
Before you get to that, Carol,
Mhm.
Brody Properties.
Yes.
The second line, you've got be completed twice,
Oh, yeah, we don't need to do
because
it.
you asked us to read that.
Thank you.
Good eyes.
Well, actually, right.
Gosh.
She's a good
I
time.
can't even see that far. Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I'm impressed. Okay, I know we're running out of steam. It's 8:37.
Let's say we're gonna recommend.
I would recommend a site visit at 6407 of Brody as well with council on the same day that you're at 6404. And proper survey for that property as well. If they don't already have one. Because we're gonna need that to plan the trailhead there from
We're
parking
sure
lot.
you have a survey for that, because we just bought the property.
Yeah, so I think we need a survey of 6407.
6405 would be like technically probably like 10 to 12 years. ago.
Right. Exactly, that's outdated. Or maybe she got it done when she moved in there in the 60s or whatever.
Although we did just have the entire front of that property as a survey.
Oh, that's right.
The
Herculean-
She did it with meets and bounds.
No, because it's still, so 6401 still has to be platted, it's not
It
just
has to
platted.
be in its surveyed and platted.
It will have to be platted out.
So those are budget items that we have to request, that's like to happen right away.
So are we recommending, and
I would recommend that's
the
first
building be
phase.
removed, the building probably, whatever it does, the building needs to go.
Yeah,
probably,
It does. And removal and remediation from.
I would say the house, the outbuildings, the fences,
No.
I mean, propane tank.
Yeah, so on that survey, we need to have where the fences are and everything, and then we'll be able to know, okay, here's what we're dealing with, let's remove this and do that, and then we'll be able to give the instructions from there.
Say all the buildings and other structures be removed and remediated.
You know, it just occurred to me, probably a water well on it too.
Yeah, we did, probably gonna have to build a well.
You have to play. Would it be nice to have a water well there?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Turn about 61.
Well, 6401 has one too, but that one did not, we'll have access, that property will eventually have access to like Austin water, so. 6107 does not have access to Austin water.
I would hate to plug a well, because,
I would too.
I mean, just, you could do something where you couldn't get to it, build
We can build
concrete
some, a lock on the
structure,
top.
where people
Yeah.
couldn't get to it, and then you have your, then
And at
you
least
have your
it's
dog
there.
walks, or
At
dog
least
walks,
it's there.
dog watering station.
I know if I had a well on my property, I would keep it.
Yeah, you're not gonna get another one, probably.
Well, Bruce insists there's one on my property.
There's one on the 3700, don't put looked at them, or is it?
They did, I think.
I think 37 was plugged.
Clubs, they did.
Country
That was a
Rec was
good
plugged.
They plugged in egress.
Yeah, I think egress was plugged, they're well plugged.
Never understood why.
So after we remove everything, the city can consider future action.
Yeah. Yeah, future actions such as, parking,
Parking trailhead.
parking and travel. To alleviate parking on Route 2.
This does kind of create that southern parking area.
Yeah, it's the way we have City Hall for Low Road, or the way we have Reese for Southfield.
Okay,
Man.
Imagine you could print that out so you could look at it.
Oh,
well,
well, this
I don't
will
know when you
be
do that this
in
time.
our, if we have one last meeting, I don't know if we would, but we would have to approve the minutes, and these are on minutes.
Well, and this is going to city council next week.
Yeah, okay, so why don't you email that document to us?
And send it to us
Just in
in
case.
case we can comment on it.
Yes, I can send this. But I need to know if this is, what this has to become an actual recommendation.
Yes. It is, does everyone vote? We need a
Motion.
Yeah, we need a motion. This is, okay, so I motion that we adopt these recommendations and recommend them to council. Do I have a second?
I have a question for you.
You second, Isabel? Yes.
Okay, yes.
So we get discussion at some point.
Yes, we have discussion now, it's open, as we have a second.
We're not gonna talk about the notes in
We
these
did.
recommendations.
We did
Right
talk
here.
about this at the top.
Let me make this clear.
Oh, just planning, yes, okay, got
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
sorry. It
No,
was
it's
a
okay.
long time ago.
That was a very long time ago. I think we've taken a nap since then. Richard, your vision good, your memory, I don't know.
Well, I was thinking when we freed up this extra money, so could we go back and look at some of that? We've got, allocated 125K there, that's great.
And then there's still money left over in that beautification budget to do, I mean, so we've spent 125.
Let's see. So,
Too
to
late to do
Sasha's
that.
point, at the top of the document, did we want to say, like, we've taken into account the budget that was provided, and in order to make the budget more, like, achievable, in order to make these projects like, in a reasonable timeline, and,
We can spend.
we make the following
You guys
recommendations.
have spent about $202,000. You've got $125,000 in the planning for the nodes, you've got $12,000 for the link, and you've got $65,000 in signage.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
So that's how much you've spent this year, so that leaves money for
The rest of
moving forward,
beautification
beautification, and all sorts
the
of-
arts and public places and all the because it doesn't take like a huge lion's share of that.
Okay, what did you want to,
I just wanted to say, like, up at the top, like, to Sasha's point, like, you know, our budget, our recommendations are coming, you know, I've lost my thread of thought.
Yeah,
I just said it, and it's gone.
that we have X amount of dollars brought available, but we've chosen to not spend, not
Phase it in.
propose that much be spent in the first year. Da, 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 da. Phase it out or something.
Oh, now we just say da 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 da, Carolyn, that's right. Carolyn, da 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 da, you know what to do.
So Lisa is the, or everyone
Yeah,
with this motion and the second, is there any editing that you would do to this document?
this
Or
is the edit that we're doing right now, is at the top of the document, we're gonna address your concern, which was, are you basing this on the numbers they gave you, or what are you doing? Like, what is this? And so, we wanna say we're taking into account the budget that Ansgar Robinson has provided,
And we, believe that the, phasing of projects and, allocating annually a certain amount of funds is a better way to approach it rather than all.
Carol's right. And, but I also, before I vote on it, I would like to see it in writing. I'd like to have it as in an email tomorrow and with a deadline that we just let you know by.
Yeah,
5 o'clock in the
That sounds
afternoon.
great.
Yeah.
Can we
something
do
so-
that? Are we allowed to do that if we're not? Because
I know, that's hard, because y'all won't be
I
here.
think we have to read it tonight and agree with it.
Oh,
Because we have to be a quorum for the report. Well, that's what I'm saying, we've been in the room and nobody's objecting.
Yeah, so I think that would be hard, because, if somebody goes back and listens to the minute meeting or something like that, and then we're not,
And we did
and
something
we're
different.
did something different, then you'd be like, well, what just happened? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, we can't do that, because then if someone isn't present for our committee, then they feel left out if you make an edit and you recommend it to Carolyn, and then everyone is
Well,
available.
no, that's good, everybody, I know that's difficult, and, okay, so.
Because it's just a matter of grammar, can you review it for grammar?
I wasn't looking at it for very much, I wanted to look at it for what you're saying.
Okay, so we take into account the opinion of public thoughts provided by Asper Robinson and the Senate. The survey, we talked about
The citywide
the,
survey,
public engagement process
yes,
for the project,
as well as the citywide survey.
public engagement results, including the survey.
Let's just go ahead and vote on it, I'll just abstain because I don't.
Yeah, I'll vote.
Feedback from council, because we included the pool stuff, we could say we were also included the pool stuff due to feedback from council. That's like,
Okay, do you want me to just read through it real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The committee discussed the cost of the project and possible funding for these activities. The committee is recommending phasing the project over several years. The recommendations take into account the opinion of probable cost provided by Alsacre Robinson, the public engagement results, including the survey, feedback from city council, as well as the city's budget. The committee made the following recommendations. The committee recommended allocating $125,000 for planning for
next year. Excuse me, if we said that this is, we're talking about these amounts are for this next fiscal year.
made the following recommendations for the next fiscal year. Okay, $125,000 for planning of 3 major nodes, Upper Cooper Creek, the Uplands, and City Hall. The committee also recommends including the Upper Reese Drive area in the plans for the Uplands. This would be a single RFP for a landscape architect design firm to design all 3 locations. Having one firm will help to create a cohesive plan between the 3 areas. This should move the projects to a stage where the city can then explore grant and other funding opportunities. The city can consider contracting a grant writer at this stage of the project. The committee also would like to consider the use of venue green tax funds for all water quality aspects of these projects. Trail connectivity ranks very high among residents. The following activities are recommended as phase 1. Sunset Valley Nature Area Trail Link. The committee recommends $12,000 be allocated for this project. Wayfinding signage. Location and placement to be determined by discussion with standing committees. Priority.
Do you want to put in parentheses, P&E and safety? All committees.
Did public safety do last time? Yes, I think we did. Priority placement of signage in areas that need clear delineation, such as the South Hills Conservation Area and the interconnection with the Violet Crown Trail, as well as safety concerns. The committee recommends allocating $50,000.
As well as areas with safety concerns.
The committee recommends allocating $50,000 for trail signage, as well as $15,000 for sign upgrades, including maps with QR codes. The committee also recommends thinning and maintaining line of sight around corners of the trails. The
For
committee,
safety purposes.
Are we past tense or present? Because we recommended in 3 and we recommend in 4. The committee also recommended.
Oh, yeah, because she's writing it as if it's meeting minutes.
Yeah. recommends thinning and maintaining line of sight, recommends, okay. The committee also recommends increased enforcement of trail and leash regulations. Restoration and preservation rate very high within the survey's results. This should be the committee recommends. The committee recommends that the park and open space management plan be revised, should I say by planning and urban committee? The plan should have the following components: erosion control, habitat restoration with native species planting, invasive species removal, soil conservation, fire and flood mitigation. The committee recommends that the city set aside $400,000 within the venue fund for restoration projects within the green spaces and conservation areas. This money will be allocated to complete proposed projects within these areas over the next 5 years. The projects will be prioritized through the revision of the open space management plan. Brody properties. The committee recommends all city council members visit the 6401 Brody property and a proper survey of the property, including a building inspection, be completed. The committee also recommends researching the possibility of a public-private partnership for the use of the property to meet the proposed plan designs. If this is
Public-private, or, because
it's still private.
Private, yeah.
Yeah.
well, that could be considered an LLC.
It could be an LLC. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, I always envisioned nonprofit, which is what this group has talked about.
Oh, I can see this.
With a 501c3. Yeah, there you go.
For the use of the property to meet the proposed plan designs. If this is possible, the committee recommends.
Organizations.
Okay. Developing. Yes.
Thank you.
It recommends developing an RFP for the use of the property by a nonprofit organization to use the facility to benefit the community. The committee recommends that all city council members visit the site at 6107 Brody and all the buildings and other structures be removed and remediated. After this, the city should consider future actions such as parking and a trailhead to alleviate parking issues along Route Hill.
Such as adding parking in your trailhead?
Yes.
Do we want to also say that you're recommending that we remove all structures, but we want to make sure they don't remove the well by plugging the well? Should we say something about leaving the well?
Trees.
After this, the city should consider future actions such as adding parking and a trailhead to alleviate parking concerns along Rootdale. Committee recommends that the Community Economic Development Committee and Arts Commission continue working on arts and public spaces as well as entry gateway signage.
I move we adjourn. No, we haven't done it yet.
Gotta have a final vote.
Second.
We have a
Yeah.
second, I agree to the changes that we made, does that mean that we can all vote on it?
Your second
Are there any
has
other
to
comments?
be- Your second has to be in the change.
Yeah.
You agree with that again?
Yeah.
Okay. And anybody online?
Can I still discuss or are we voting at this point?
Oh, we can discuss, because I had one thing that popped into my head, that the RFP should follow the plans that we have made. This can't be some new RFP that doesn't follow the exact plans that this committee has already worked so tirelessly on to reflect the needs of the community.
Well, we can't exactly say that, but.
Well, we can't have another new plan.
Yeah.
I know,
I'm sorry.
I know, but
I've worked tirelessly, maybe you haven't.
You talking about the RFP here?
I'm tired of it.
Yes, I'm talking about the RFP should reflect the map that we've made out of this committee. We're recommending that an RFP a request for proposals within landscape architect be made to reflect our work, to further refine our work.
And should it be a landscape architect, or could we say landscape architect or other
And design
appropriate
firm, and design.
design firm? 'Cause
I think.
Okay, or design firm.
I'll just-
And I think this is a really grammatical thing, and maybe that you don't want to think about that right now, because you just want to get this out. But I'm reading the committee recommended so many times, and I think if you make a statement at the beginning of a paragraph that the committee recommends, we don't need to make that statement about the committee recommending
Okay,
repeatedly in the same paragraph or in the same section. Because there are some places where every sentence begins with the committee recommends.
Yeah, do a bullet.
Does that make sense?
yeah, it's fine.
Is it too picky?
No, you should have been here when,
It's
Mitch was
fine, it's
here.
working. It's just, I think the way that Carolyn is writing it is based on the way minute notes are written. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, but if this is this going to be the final copy of the document?
Yes. It has to be, it has to be.
Well, I don't want to impede the committee's progress, so that was just a suggestion.
We're going through it now.
Do you want to do a highlight of committee and see, or recommend, and see how often it comes up? There's a line on here. Recommend. Okay, the committee recommends.
you have to do you have to do all this edit, you have to say the committee recommends, then you have to space it and have the little next
Yeah,
bullet or whatever. It'd be a lot of work, but if Carolyn wants to do it, we could approve it contingent upon. If the motion, we have to change the motion.
You wanna just say it in like more absolute, like the city should, council should consider, or like, what would you replace with the committee? Council should, or the city should, or?
Should is not a really good term that you ever say to a council.
I-
In any kind of paper.
I'm not suggesting
Could.
I'm not suggesting that we should change the language, but we're repeating it very often. So if we say at the top of the paragraph, the committee recommends, it's assumed that in every one of the subsets, that's true. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
So I like the idea of approving it with Carolyn allowed to make edits when she's, fresh.
Yeah,
I think it's fine, if she just went through the whole thing with the recommended word highlight.
yeah, I got most of it, yeah.
She got them all.
I did a couple of them just now, so.
The ones that were easy, that could be like bullet pointed, she did.
So.
You can do and researching the possibility of a public. It could be a huge long run-on sentence.
It could be a giant run-on sentence. Okay, let me see.
Do you want to just do all of those bulleted?
Yeah.
Bullet.
you could say two
When
and
you're
two
going-
researching if you wanted.
Your bullet, you have to do it after recommends.
Yeah,
She's fixing it, she's fixing it. Sasha, you're making us look good.
everybody with if I was just as a reader, if I read the committee recommends one more time, I would shut down.
You really stop being so bossy.
But you guys, you guys have done a very nice job with all the work.
You're awesome for saying that.
Okay, I think, let's see. These are all in separate ones, so. Now, is that okay? They're in separate ones. I took out the committee recommends, except and when they're in one section.
I love that.
Do you accept that? Lisa?
I think saying, I love that I can use formal language, I accept those changes. I'm such a fake chairperson. I'm like such a poser. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
And also.
I took a couple more recommendations.
Yeah, can we, all in favor?
What's that?
Can you say all in favor?
Isabel accepts the changes. All in favor of the new draft language?
I move adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
9:01.
Second.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody doesn't want to adjourn.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Liz.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Carolyn. What can we ever do to show you our appreciation?
I know, I'm all good.
Okay.
Food over in that bucket.
I don't think there's food in that bucket.
There's, like,
I'm gonna take a picture of that real quick.
Okay.
So I have it. Then
anytime,
we can erase it off.
Well,
yeah.
we had to erase it before we walked out.
Oh, yeah, well,
I would think, so, because you don't always want somebody else to get your goods.
Goods and stuff. Yeah, well, and I know they used to have written on there, leave the room the way you found it.
yeah, and,
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing to do.
and you know what? Somebody could hold this against us. I saw what their
Well,
numbers
when
were.
they read it, they don't understand
Yeah,
what they just
right.
saw.